assuming that time right now is on their side. They continue advancing in Donbass. They're trying not unsuccessfully.
Take a look up in Tokyo, shares of Shiseido. I think they make it, tells me, jumping up more than 5%, 28.05 last done yesterday. The London-based independent franchise partners announced a stake in Shiseido. Shiseido turn around his business and also unlock more value in the stock. The move coming as Shiseido struggles to regain ground in one of its key markets, China. Let's bring in Oliver Matthew for more kind of Asian consumer research.
He joins us live. Our guest host for the Rob Sabara line is still with us from Nomura. And my great colleague Lynn Lin is also part of this conversation. She, of course, watches what happens in Japan very closely. Oliver, great to have you with us and appreciate your time. So what are they up to in terms of taking that stake in Shiseido? What exactly does IFE want to see happen?
So they haven't made any proposals, so we don't know. But let's step back a bit and look at why you might like Shiseido. So the shares have done incredibly badly over the last couple of years. The headwinds in China and travel retail. That's been the same for some other cosmetics companies. But there's been some big improvements made at Shiseido. And I actually think it's a kind of underappreciated corporate governance poster child of Japan. Let me go over a few points here. So 10 years ago, the Shiseido board actually insisted on bringing an external CEO in for the first time, Tani-san, and he really made big steps to globalize and modernize the company. He's just given over the CEO role to Fujiwara-san, who's just started. But as part of that transition, they've actually made two big announcements. Number one, they have their first ever independent chair of the board. So that is Hatanaka-san, who's the ex-CEO of Astellas Pharma, so has a lot of global experience. He's also on the board at Sony. So now that is the first time Shiseido's ever done this. It's pretty rare in Japan, but it is an extremely strong indication they're taking governance much more seriously than before. The second thing they did is, for Fujiwara-san and the management team, they announced that their long-term incentives would be.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we're live streaming on YouTube tonight. I'm going to be opening up X Spaces for call-in. We are live streaming on February 19th. The Asian session is about to get underway here for equities. Obviously, some of the futures market and the currency markets are already actively trading. A lot has happened in the news today. So before we begin, please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe to all the channels. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. It's very important to subscribe to all the channels because of the strikes and the censorship on YouTube. They not only censor speech, but they also censor reach. So it's important for you to get notifications from all these different modalities so I can reach you. Please help support my work by asking your followers, the ones that you're connected to on social media, to follow me. We're going to end up having a crisis in 2025 or 2026, I suspect, because of certain things that are emerging. You are going to need me to navigate you through that in terms of finance and in terms of health and wellness. Nobody's going to be as accurate as I, and you know what? I got you through 2020. I'll get you through what's coming. All right. Now, there is an issue that's emerging, not just geopolitically with China. Hopefully Trump can de-escalate the issue in Ukraine. There's this rumblings of further conflict in the Middle East, and that will perturbate markets. But the bigger issue that I'm concerned about are two things: an emergence of an orchestrated event that's like 9/11. Because when Trump continues to try to shrink the deep state, pull power away, and restructure the national security state, entities and individuals embedded in the national security state is going to try to prevent that restructuring and try to prevent those budgetary cuts. The best way to do it is to orchestrate a 9/11-like event. Then they go to Congress and they ask for a bunch of money and blame Trump for cutting their budget and their staff. It's not 100% guarantee that's going to happen, but the risks are elevating rapidly, especially when Doge starts doing the auditing with the Pentagon. Doge is already finding lots of, nefarious activities of certain grants going to nonprofits, NGOs, whatever. Wasteful spending on USAID. Corruption, it looks like, with Social Security. I would not be surprised that those people that are 200 years old also voted for Democrats in the 2024 election and the 2020 election. But that's one issue, is a 9/11-like event. The other issue is that of avian flu, this H5N1, the highly pathogenic H5N1. D1.1 variant, which is typically in birds, has now been found in cattle in Nevada. All right, that's not any new news. That's been reported about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But the thing is that humans are close to cattle more often than they are with wild birds or with, a large flock on a farm. So that human to human, that human to cattle interaction is going to lead to spillover. And as we move towards the summer months, and there's a circulation that is happening, when the warm weather happens, people are outside, wild birds are flying around, people go to farms, for family activities or whatever. There's going to be a circulation of H5N1. And certain mutations have to take place for it to become human-to-human transmission. It has already been found that this D1.1 was the variant that killed the Louisiana patient. That's important to understand. Now, there's an affinity to the upper receptors. That's bad, because affinity to upper receptors in your lung is one of the mutations that have to take place of many for it to be human-to-human transmission. In that patient that died from that variant, D1.1, it had affinity to the upper receptors, the alpha-2/6 receptors, but with low viral load. So that means the replicase isn't mutated enough to allow enough viral load to be high enough for human-to-human transmission. Another thing is that you have 4 proteins that make the replicase for it to create higher viral load. All right. Well, in some populations, some mutations are a certain way with one of the proteins or 2 of the proteins of the 4 of the complex. But you have to have a orchestrated series of mutations within that replicase to really increase the viral load for humans. Okay. if those mutations take place, that means when a human gets a variant of D1.1 or some other variant of H5N1 that has these mutations, then the viral load will be higher. So now you have the low affinity, or let me rephrase that, an increased affinity to the alpha 2/6 receptors. We haven't had all the mutations to take place for the replicase to allow for high viral load, but that will happen over time, especially during the summer months when H5N1 circulates between species. And then you need to have it really high infectivity for humans. You need the N protein, the NA protein, to be truncated. There's like a stalk that can, there's a piece of the protein that can be truncated and still function. They found that when that happens, human-to-human transmission with influenzas are higher. So the replicase has to mutate, so there's higher viral load. And over time, when there's more circulation of the H5N1 with humans and other animals, you're going to eventually have this higher affinity to the alpha 2/6 receptor. So when these three events that happen, which could happen in the fall of 2025, going all the way into 2026, you could have human-to-human transmission. Now, which celebrity doc are you going to go to get you the information you need? You're going to need me. Trust me, you're going to need me. Now, if I'm gone on YouTube, how are you going to reach me? It's possible that I lose my channels. I've been playing whack-a-mole for 5 years. Who's going to navigate you through when the market crashes? So it behooves you to really pay attention to me. Like, sit down, listen really carefully. Make sure that you subscribe to all my channels, because you will need me. All right, let's go to CNBC to get a little pulse on what's going on in the Asian market. The futures for the S&P 500. Oh, I just lost it. I'll get that number for you.
Here, Sydney is down more than 1% now. The big fellows, Korea and Japan, Kospi and Seoul is down 2/3, call it. The Tokyo market is off 0.9%. All right, that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Squawk. On behalf of Mans and myself, thank you so much for watching. Keep it right here. The rest of the market opens just ahead on Street Time. That's coming up next. Keep safe. We will see you tomorrow.
All right, so let's go to Hochul. Hochul is trying to, well, there's two things going on with Hochul. One is her trying to push out Mayor Adams. The other is that Trump is stopping her congestion pricing in Manhattan. So let's go to live now about this.
Wow. Thank you, Governor Hochul. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. Simple situation. New York ain't going back. We tried gridlock for 60 years. It didn't work. It cost our economy billions. But you know what's helping our economy? What's making New York a better place? Congestion pricing. So as the governor said, let me just take you through what's happened in the month and a half since tolling began. Traffic was down 9% in January. 1.2 million fewer vehicles entered the central business district. And that meant bus speeds and all speeds went way up, particularly express buses, people coming from areas where a lot of people drive. The cross streets, which are the death zone for drivers in Manhattan. Anybody knows that. Canal Street, 34th Street, 57th Street, speeds are up, up, up. The streets are safer, half as many crashes, and that means pedestrians are not getting injured and killed. But this is a governor who talks to me about the economy. There are fewer cars, but there are more people coming to the central business district. That's what you want. That's what you want. And the central business district areas have had a surge in pedestrian traffic, office workers, tourists, shoppers, that far outpaces the rest of the city and the rest of Manhattan. And small thing, we heard a lot of people, oh, no one's going to come here for dinner. Restaurant reservations up 7% since congestion pricing, far outpacing the other cities on the East Coast. Broadway is humming. Gross is up 25%. Audience attendance up 20%. Yellow cabs were concerned. They've had a hard time before COVID and during COVID. Their trips and their tips are up 10%. Their yellow cab drivers are seeing a lot more money. And a small fact that might, I don't know, interest President Trump, commercial office leasing in the month of January 2025 compared to 2024, up 61%. Is that a vote of confidence? People want to be in New York. People want to come to New York, and they're signing leases. New Yorkers are seeing the difference. As the governor alluded to, there was one poll, major poll that it found that 6 out of 10 voters say President Trump should allow us to keep congestion pricing. And interestingly, 7 out of 10 drivers, the people who regularly drive to Manhattan, are saying, this is good, this is a good deal. And they are saying, keep congestion pricing. So it's mystifying that after 4 years of environmental study, a 4,000-page environmental review, that the US DOT would seek to reverse course. So we're doing, I just want to reinforce what the governor said. We're doing exactly what the federal government asked of New York and everybody. We're doing a thoughtful local solution. I thought the Republican Party was in favor of local control. I thought the Republican Party was in favor of local control. And so, as you said, Real World New York, a new episode, tells you at our density, 9 times Phoenix or Houston, one of those Sunbelt cities, we don't have enough room to have everybody come to our streets in a car. We just don't have enough room. So, as the governor said, within moments of receiving that letter, we responded with a lawsuit which says, number one, we're seeking a declaratory judgment that this is not proper, and number 2, we're not turning off the tolls until this is
I see I'm joined by a number of elected officials who've been real champions on this. Senator Brad Pullman. We have our council member who's
You know, as
here.
Trump says ex-nay on the congestion pricing. So what does she roll out today? She rolls out today, they're saving lives because there's less cars on the street. They might as well just say shut down the whole city because you actually can breathe when there's no cars. You know, when there was shelter in place, and there were no cars on the road in Manhattan during the crisis in 2020, you could literally breathe because you didn't have all that exhaust. And what's interesting is just the tires on the road create these really small particulates. All right. And you could see it, you can smell and notice a difference. Your eyes wouldn't get irritated, and so might as well just take, if you really want to increase the health of the society and the prosperity of the society, just have no cars on the street then. Now, what it is it's a money grab. And once it gets instituted, then they're going to keep on raising the price, and the city is going to take your money and waste it. That's what this is about.
Protects the environment and does not unfairly burden hardworking New Jersey commuters. The current program lines MTA's pockets at the expense of New Jerseyans. He says, although we have had a difference of opinion with our colleagues in New York on congestion pricing, We have always had a productive relationship with our neighbors across the Hudson. I look forward to continuing that spirit of partnership for the benefit of the entire tri-state area. Also, Fox News correspondent Alexis McAdams reporting this, that as New York City's controversial congestion pricing comes to an end, she's hearing from city council members who are thanking President Trump for pulling approval of the toll here. They're excited that the Department of Transportation will rescind the November agreement under the value pricing pilot program, getting rid of the $9 surcharge for drivers entering Manhattan below 60th Street here. So interesting corners for support of this. Now, the Common Sense Caucus telling Fox, that's the caucus within the New York City Council, they applaud Trump for keeping his promise to end the punitive congestion pricing tax in New York City and relieving hardworking families, commuters, and small businesses from this unnecessary and unfair financial burden. Now, in the mix of everything going on with New York City Mayor Eric Adams today, his office did not provide a comment. The press secretary from his office said purely, quote, New York City has no jurisdiction over congestion pricing, saying it's a state law that was passed by former Governor Cuomo and instituted by Governor Hochul. So this is a question for them. So with everything Adams had going on today, his office demurring there on a statement saying it's not in the purview of the city. This is purely a state matter. All right. Wanted to get all that in. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're a little past the top of a new hour here. We have a lot more top headlines left to get to. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
I understand that people are concerned about bird flu and what to do and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the thing is that there's certain things that I can't say on YouTube and you can't type in the chat box. It's called censorship, all right? And I don't want another fucking strike. Now, please understand that, all right? When I do a video specifically, if you notice, if I do a video specifically on a certain issue with a pathogen, it will be on Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. All right. I already told you 1,000 times what you need to take. If you don't know, you haven't been paying attention. People need to start using some common sense on the way the censorship works on YouTube. Now, I've already had 2 channels blown up trying to inform the public and protect people. And guess what? No one cared. No one cared that I lost I lost one channel that was just under 10,000 subscribers. I've been bled dry every time I post on the large channel, which is the feed right now. And yeah, I'm a little pissed off about it. But the public that I helped to save didn't seem to want to step up to the plate and help me. No, you'll listen to and help other celebrity docs. Meanwhile, who really told you what was really going on and was the most accurate and what to do? That had the most comprehensive protocol.
We're going to be watching what happens with HSBC shares today when we get up and running at the bottom of the hour. And I'll send things now to Lynn, who is just sitting right next to me for a nice change and a look at the Japanese markets and, of course, the impact from tariffs.
Yeah, indeed.
All right.
So,
Again, if you'd like to help to support my work, which you're going to need me when the big crisis happens, because it will happen, help support my work by going to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can be a paid member to my Patreon channel. I have literally thousands of videos on all these fucking channels to tell you what you need to navigate through these crises. For free. It's not through a paywall. For free. But you'll support people that put a bunch of stuff on Substack behind a paywall. You'll keep on increasing the viewership of these celebrity docs that get it wrong, like continually. So help support my work by donating on Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, and be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's through the people that are donating and being paid members that allow me to get these videos out for you for free, that literally save your life. And I'm not speaking on hyperbole here. And go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take a look at the different products that I offer to help with your health and wellness. I tell you how to stack to improve your health and to boost up your immune system. Now, if you listen to me in between the lines, if you listen in between the way I say things, you'll be able to fully understand what you need to do. And if you ask me one more fucking time, I'm gonna literally have a heart attack.
And where a country has been blown to smithereens. Well, now that.
Unfortunately, President Trump, with great respect for him as a leader of the people, which we respect very much, the American people who constantly support us, unfortunately lives in this disinformation space.
Today, Zelensky meets with U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg, hoping to get on the same page.
Part of my mission is to sit and listen and say, hey, what are your concerns? Well, yes, we can go back to the United States. President Trump.
President Trump also indicated he could meet with Vladimir Putin by the end of the month. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. So this all started today with a very lengthy post by President Trump on Truth Social today. We're going to put that up. I printed it out. It's right here. We're going to read from some of it. And within it is where President Trump referred to Zelensky as a dictator. And so this is getting a lot of attention. It's been a quite controversial couple of hours here. But
Zelensky is a dictator. Zelensky is a dictator. He doesn't want to have elections because he knows he's going to be kicked out. Not only that, he has a cocaine habit that's being paid for by the Department of Defense and the Secretary of State from the Biden administration. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support my work and help support your health. Get the probiotics that I have. I have a veggie cat version and a powdered version. I prefer to take the powdered version, and you need to improve your gut biome. Why? By improving your gut biome, you're going to improve your metabolism and be able to absorb the nutrients that you need. You're going to reduce inflammation in your gut. When you reduce inflammation in your gut, your immune system increases. Guess what? If you listen to what I have to say, you need to boost up your immune system since 2020. So it behooves you to actually improve your gut biome. Now, when you reduce that inflammation in your gut, you're going to actually have a mucosal barrier that improves, gets thicker. And in that barrier are microbes, good microbes that you need, and you're getting rid of bad microbes. You also have something called IgA, which is a type of antibody that's really important for your gut. So when you have a good gut biome, you're going to have more IgAs in that mucosal lining. When you reduce that inflammation, you're reducing also leaky gut syndrome. Leaky gut syndrome is associated with allergies. Why? You bring in some food that, or an antigen, right? And you have, you're eating certain types of, proteins or whatever. And if you have leaky gut, that protein can get into your system, and the body will think that it's a foreign body and it needs to produce an antibody. And then once you get exposed the second time with leaky gut syndrome, guess what? You become allergic to that food. Oh. So bad gut means more chances of having allergies. So if someone around you keeps on having allergies all the time, they're allergic to this and allergic to that food and blah, 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 blah. Most likely it's because they have a leaky gut and or overexposure to inoculations. You don't want a leaky gut. because over time, you're going to be allergic to everything you eat. So you don't want that. In addition, by reducing the inflammation, you're reducing the chances of mutations in the crypt of your gut. That's where the stem cells are to repopulate your gut, because your gut keeps on shedding cells. I believe it sheds every 7 days. So your gut is constantly remodeling. When you get older, because of all these divisions, cellular divisions, you eventually have mutations that could lead to polyps, that could lead to colon cancers. So you want to mitigate that. To mitigate it, reduce the inflammation to reduce the chances of the mutations, but you still need to get your cancer screenings. My aunt died from colon cancer. You know why she died from colon cancer? Because she was too embarrassed to actually go and get a colonoscopy. And now she's dead because she had metastasized colon cancer. Do you want that to happen to you? I mean, if you do, then you might as well just turn off YouTube and not even listen to me. But if you really want to improve your health, you really need to pay attention. Cancer screenings are really important. And I should do just a video on cancer screenings because there's lots of them. But with the colon, get your colonoscopy regularly. I recommend every 5 years. Some people say every 10, but because of the crazy stuff that was going on and during the COVID years, you want to have your colon checked every 5 years. Trust me on this. All right. So you really need to calm down that gut, bring down that inflammation. And taking a good probiotic is one great way to do it. All right. And to heal the gut. Now, when you have a better gut biome, you're going to have better skin and hair and nails. When you look at a patient and they have skin problems, they don't just have skin problems. Most likely have a gut problem. Not only that, you're going to improve your metabolism and you're going to improve your detoxification because your gut and your liver communicate. And if you have a poor gut health, you most likely are going to eventually develop poor liver health. Same thing with your brain. If you have a poor gut biome, you're not sleeping well. You're irritable. You most likely have mental acuity issues. And when you're not sleeping well, your cortisol levels go up, which is immunosuppressive. So it's a double negative for your immune system. So by having a good gut biome, you're going to sleep better. By having a good gut biome, you're going to be able to concentrate better. And your cortisol levels are going to go down. And guess what? Your immune system starts to go up. Now, if you're chronically inflamed because you're being constantly attacked, either by foreign things or something internal, I'm being careful with the way I say this, and it's constantly inflaming, then your immune system is going down. This is what I've been saying about some of the aftershock of the crisis. So what you need to do is that you need to take a good probiotic and bring down that inflammatory response in your gut. Guess what? More people are getting polyps at a younger age. Now, part of it is because of diet. Part of it's because of endocrine disruption with the chemicals that they're ingesting. That's all pre-2020. Now, when you look at after 2020 and the crisis, polyp formation at a younger age has gone even higher. Why? Because of this chronic inflammation and some of the mutations that have taken place post-2020. So it really behooves you, if you're 40 you better start getting a colonoscopy like pronto, because most likely they're going to find something. Now, if you don't believe me, roll the dice. You might end up like my aunt. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotic either in the powdered form or in the veggie cap version. I prefer taking the powdered version because I take a lot of other different supplements that are in a powder, and it's just easier for me to mix it in my hummus when I take it for lunch. Please go to my store, get the probiotic. Make sure you use discount 5. You know why? Because I have premium quality supplements, and they need to get into your hands, and you need to take them so you can improve your health and your wellness, slow down the aging process, and navigate through the bullshit that we went through in 2020. Now, guess what? Again, I'm the most comprehensive of anyone on this in terms of what you need to do and what happened. Some people pick only one side of the problem, like inoculations. Other people, pick another side of the problem, only, the wonderful gain of function. No, both of them are a problem. Both of them are. And no one is as comprehensive as the protocol to actually calm down that inflammation, boost up your immune system, how to use the lessons learned in anti-aging to navigate yourself through the crisis that we went through. But you got a lot of celebrity docs that will say, well, just take this one thing or these two things. Wrong, 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 wrong. It's about stacking, and it's about taking the lessons learned from the anti-aging crowd, because it works. It works. All those celebrity docs that you listen to the last 5 years, look at them. Look at 5 years ago what they look like, and look at them today. Now look at me and now and compare it 5 years ago. Who didn't age? And many of these celebrity docs are my age or slightly older. Who didn't age? It's Dr. Paul Cottrell. It wasn't Dr. Drew or Dr. Wizard of Oz. All right, let's go to CNBC talking about Palantir.
To up his sales of the company. So no matter when you're on air, how much you cheerlead for the company, if you're selling more and more shares, right, that is the action that talks. And if your top dog is selling shares in that kind of volume.
And not to remind the audience, who's the one that also navigated you through the crash in the market during the crisis of 2020? It wasn't Dr. Drew. It's Dr. Drew. He wants to weightlift in the gym and then start, promoting health. He's waiting to, but it's like, why did he turn gray and white so fast with his hair? Poor gut biome.
Where it is years and years and years until we actually monetize quantum computing. Could be a lot of press releases and some interesting tales told at conferences, but there won't be a financial impact for a long, long time. And if you're going to believe anybody on Wall Street, you might as well believe the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, and he said so.
Yesterday, I was talking to Winnie Wu from Bank of America Securities, and I was wondering, whether or not the market is talking about the valuation of DeepSeek. It's not a listed company, but even so, and whether or not investors will describe the same AI premium to Chinese tech stocks as they have to US tech.
Yeah, these stocks, particularly with the advent and announcement of DeepSeek and the fact that all of the major Chinese tech platforms have already made announcement that they're going to integrate DeepSeek, you see the stocks do very, very well. I, however, prefer the U.S. stocks because overall, the revenue figures, either on a quarter-to-quarter or annual basis for the Chinese companies, are still very slow compared to the U.S. counterparts. So I hope they come raging back. I think that the fact that Xi Jinping attended the big tech symposium, is now buddies with Jack Ma and all of the other Chinese tech titans, is a positive sign. I wish him well, but I've been away from the Chinese stocks because of the slow growth for some time. Always happy to change my mind, still away from them.
Okay, I don't know about buddy, but managing the optics for sure.
Now, I help people through the crisis in 2020 with the financial, how to financially navigate through it. I'll tell you how to financially navigate and make money on Bitcoin. And it's not buying Bitcoin. There are two ETFs, BITO and BITI. And you can long it and you can short it. And you play the swings of the market. If you play the swings of the market, you'll make money. So the money that I just told you how to make, you should spend a little bit of that at my store and improve your health. Now, did some celebrity doc give you that idea? No, because they don't think like I do. They're not as smart as I am.
Grow economic or company-specific drivers, because as I said at the beginning of the telecast, the macro is very uncertain. Because I think, regardless of the rhetoric that comes out of the White House, that a combination of all of these policies, particularly focused on tariffs, is inflationary. And if inflation starts to perk up again, the Fed will not lower rates. They're going to have to raise them. And if you get the yield on the U.S. 10-year
and what is happening there's two dynamics that are going on with Bitcoin. If the Fed does not lower rates and weaken the dollar, then Bitcoin will continue to go down, because Bitcoin is starting to emerge in the financial markets as a hedge or a way to play the Federal Reserve. You can play the Federal Reserve rate also in the Treasury market, but it's starting to emerge, and also the currency markets. But these cryptos, especially Bitcoin, is starting to become a Federal Reserve trading virtual commodity. All right. So if the Fed wants to raise rates, it's going to hurt Bitcoin. If the Fed lowers rates, it's going to help Bitcoin. Now there's an added complication here. You got, I think it's MicroStrategies or MicroStrategies coming in and being the whale to buying, a bunch of Bitcoin. So it distorts the market. All right, so you got these two dynamics that are taking place here. There's a big resistance point at 100,000. All right, and why? Because in the financial markets now, because of the ETF wrappers, you got traders that are long and shorting. All right, and it suppresses it. All right, so keep that in mind. But it's starting to emerge that it's like a way to trade the Fed policy. All right. Now it's still a bullshit virtual commodity. If you think that Bitcoin is actually going to be real in the real world, it won't be. But the thing is that you can make money in it. All right. You can make money in a virtual commodity. I mean, people are making money on, virtual asset prices of Palantir and NVIDIA. But keep that in mind. But would you get that information from Wizard of Oz, Dr. Wizard of Oz, or Dr. Drew? I mean, if there's so many people that are depressed in American society, how does Dr. Drew have enough time to do a podcast? All right. Let's go to live now about Zelensky being a dictator here.
War right below the threshold of war, and he's not going to stop there because the U.S. is an enemy for Russia.
Lastly, I want to talk about the money and the support the United States has provided. In that very Truth Social post that President Trump made, he said this: the United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back here. And he said this: we have a big, beautiful ocean as a separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits half of the money we sent him is missing. And, you know, it is right for the American public, the American people, to want to know where this money went, how it was spent, and the like here. But did Zelensky say that half of that money has gone missing?
I've not seen the reporting. I mean, look, Ukraine indeed, just like any other country, has an issue with corruption. They have done multiple efforts in the right direction to go after people who are exploiting Western support and doing things illegally. However, I want to emphasize one immensely important thing. This is not the waste of our money, because, as I mentioned, it is truly in American national interest to help Ukraine, because China is watching and destabilize Europe. It also means destabilize the rest of Western economies. And the third point that I also want to emphasize is that Putin is not going to stop at Ukraine. Just look what's happening right now in Georgia. Putin already has threatened his neighboring states. He's trying to destabilize Moldova, and I can go on and on across Europe. That Europe is becoming more destabilized. However, it is also tremendously important that Europe wakes up to Russia's threat and double down its effort and to truly help Ukraine this time.
So just lastly, and this is somewhat of an open-ended question here, but that's where President Trump's language is going. And I'm going to pose the question to you. How do you convince the American people that it is in the United States' interest to keep supporting Ukraine? What's the argument?
So number one argument is that even though that sounds like a lot of money that we are sending to Ukraine, it's actually just a fracture of our money that we have for defense that actually really helps keep America first and America safe. And after all, as I mentioned, China is watching. So if we do not actually help Ukraine, China might also test our red lines with Taiwan. So make no mistake, this is one of the best investments that America can do for our national security.
All right, Ivana Strawner there with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. Ivana, good to see you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
I just want to remind the audience, the ones that are watching the live stream on YouTube, I have X Spaces open on my X channel. You can join in, listen, ask for the mic, ask questions. Remember, there's censorship with YouTube, so there's certain things you just can't ask. All right, so, you know, use some common sense. But the ones that have joined on X Spaces, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. All right, let's go to CNA. They have, it looks like they're having a summit. I'm not sure what in. Let's see here.
And economic uncertainty. For example, in the US, we are seeing corporations drastically scale back their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, the DEI programs, as they come under pressure to comply with the directive by the new Trump administration to focus on merit-based opportunities instead. And with the rapid advancements in artificial intelligence, companies also grapple with using the technology to remain competitive, yet not displace jobs or alienate customers and lose that so-called human touch. On top of that, businesses, they're also under pressure to adopt sustainable and environmentally friendly practices. But those often involve hefty investments. And so while they can enhance the long-term viability of a business, they may also reduce the short-term profits. And so this edition of the CNA Summit right here at Pan Pacific Singapore looks at that, the trade-offs in leadership, and we'll also examine the key factors that distinguish resilient and successful organizations from those that struggle to adapt. And so we will hear from Singapore Minister for National Development, Desmond Lee. He will be delivering the opening keynote address, as well as MediaCorp CEO, Ms. Tan Lok Keng. Then we will head on into our panel discussions. The first one will focus on the internal trade-offs, the tough choices that leaders face within the organization that impact talent management, resource allocation.
Those kind of summits are a waste of time. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the vitamin C and magnesium so you don't get scurvy, just in case, you're going to, get on a boat and you're going to travel around the world and you don't have any, fresh fruit with you or sauerkraut. But all kidding aside, take vitamin C every day to boost up your immune system. Really important. And by the way, vitamin C also improves your skin, especially if you take collagen. Drink it with filtered water. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season or because of something else, take a double dose. Make sure you drink it with filtered water because it's water soluble. But take it every day to boost up your immune system. It's also an antioxidant, but it's not as strong as C60. Turmeric. Really important. It brings down inflammation. It brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. That does two things for you. By bringing down chronic inflammation, you're helping your immune system and you're helping your cardiovascular system. This is also an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals in your cells and in your bloodstream. So you're not oxidizing LDL. When you don't oxidize LDL, you don't have plaque buildup. Oh, wow, that's amazing how that works. So would you rather listen to Dr. Paul Cottrell tell you to take turmeric and take C60 and bring down inflammation and bring down those free radicals, soak up those free radicals, bring down your LDL levels by taking omega-3 and nattokinase so you don't have to be on a statin? Oh, you don't want to be on a statin. They'll Swiss cheese your brain. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the turmeric. This brings down inflammation. It's the third part of my protocol. All right. What's the protocol, Dr. Paul Cottrell? The protocol is real simple. It's 4 pillars. I've modified it. The first pillar is taking max 35 or max 14 to boost up your immune system. The second pillar is to take C60 to soak up free radicals. Why C60? Because it is the most potent antioxidant you can buy. And the third pillar is to take turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to bring down inflammation and to boost up your immune system. And the fourth pillar of the core protocol is taking Boomer Boost to boost up your metabolism and to increase your energy levels. Because when you have energy levels, your cells will have the energy to perform better. And you will move around and you won't atrophy. And guess what? You need a lot of ATP for those neurons. You need a lot of ATP to have a healthy immune system. You need a lot of ATP to have a healthy endocrine system. You ever wonder why your endocrine system starts to go to shit when you get older? Well, it starts with ATP. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. Make sure you stack it with ashwagandha and lignans to get the max benefit.
So I wouldn't say we're necessarily out of the woods yet when it comes to tariffs.
No, not at all. But how do you see it panning out through the course of this year? Because, there's different deadlines for different regions. So Mexico and Canada end of this month, 1st April for reciprocal tariffs. It's a bit confusing.
No, I agree. I think there's plenty to still be dissected. I would say that when it comes to China at the moment, it appears to be fairly moderate. We do need to wait until April 1st for the findings of when President Trump asked his team to look at the previous trade deal. And I think that what we're really looking for is some conclusion, some sort of negotiated deal between China and the US on trade, whether it's a rehash of that phase one trade deal for 2019 or some sort of new trade deal beyond that, because that's what really is going to give markets a sense of certainty around where the trade picture can land. Because right now, I do think that not just investors, but also corporates are trying to understand really where the bogey is. You know, where can I be putting my capex in? Should it be in Mexico? Should it be in Indonesia? Should it be in Vietnam? Should it be in the US? Right? I think that's still unclear at the moment.
At the same time, though, Eugene, it does very much seem like the Chinese government is worried about that declining foreign direct investment in the country, and that's why it's come out to supposedly with a sort of action plan now to try to attract some of that capital back. I suppose the big question for the market with regards to some of the points that it's making in this draft is whether it will come good on this plan this time around, given we've sort of heard this before from the so-called poster child of opening up Premier Li Qiang. But some in the market that I've spoken to this morning reacting to this news is that they do believe that they are quite convinced that this time around could be different, and that there does seem to be more of a degree of, you could call it, seriousness and commitment here from the Chinese government.
Yeah, I think that is probably likely in the sense that the trade picture this time around is different than it was, you could argue, 1 or 2 years ago, mainly because with the inauguration of President Trump.
Now, some people would say, you know, Dr. Paul Cottrell, you know, should we really worry about China? The economic viability of China could be an indicator if they're going to make a move on Taiwan. All right. If there's some instability in the CCP and with President Xi's command of the country, he may want to flex his muscles and push forward with Taiwan. All right. A lot of countries, when they start having economic problems, they have a tendency to, you know, overreach and, you know, accelerate some of their strategic plans because they're afraid that they may not if their economy continues to, you know, dwindle. That's a big problem. All right. So paying attention to what's going on in China is really important, extremely important. Now, economically, they're not doing too well. Now, in terms of Bitcoin, it's trading at around 96,000 a coin. Now, what I want to do is I want to transition to Trump's cabinet pick here. Lutnick, yes it is.
On some of these cabinet confirmations here, let's put them up. We compiled them as well. That, remember, just yesterday, now the new Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, was confirmed 51-45. Just today, former Republican Senator from Georgia, Kelly Loeffler, confirmed today in a vote of 52-46, she becomes the next administrator of the Small Business Administration. And as you know, we just reported the confirmation hearing held today for Lori Chavez DeRaymer as the next Labor Secretary, and that confirmation vote teed up for Kash Patel to lead the FBI set for tomorrow. And House Republicans
tomorrow is going to be a big news day because of the whole Kash confirmation vote. That's going to be big.
To the U.S. Capitol. Now, I wanted to also get on your radar because this is interesting. This is coming from Fox Business correspondent Edward Lawrence, reporting that from 2 administration sources, separate ones, that the first cabinet meeting at the White House by President Trump will be a week from today on Wednesday, February 26th. So the cabinet that is so far confirmed will be meeting with the president in Trump's first cabinet meeting a week from today. And we'll have hopefully live coverage of that for you. In the meantime here, let's stay on Capitol Hill. We heard from Senate Republicans today. Now, it's just not the cabinet confirmations that are still working their way through the Senate. Remember, government funding runs out March the 14th. At that time, there could be a partial government shutdown unless, and you heard there in Chad's reporting, that the House and the Senate need to align on their budget priorities. President Trump liking the House version, but the Senate's still going forward with their own version. Let's hear Senate Majority Leader jump in and explain the discrepancies.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As it stands today, the Senate has confirmed 18 cabinet level nominations for the Trump administration. And that will put us at the fastest rate in getting nominees through the Senate confirmation process since 2001. So we're encouraged with how that has been going. We owe that to our colleagues who've been willing to step up and are very committed to getting them across the finish line, despite, I might add, a lot of Democrat resistance. They've tried to make it hard, but as we just continue to grind through the process, we've been successful getting 18 done, and tomorrow we'll do Cash Patel. We have a couple more that we'll tee up for next week. With regard to legislation, I think as you all know, Senator Graham and the Budget Committee last week reported out a budget resolution, and thank them for doing that. That tees up an opportunity for us to move that across the floor. And as you all know, that unlocks budget reconciliation, which will follow from it. And this particular budget resolution, I think, as you know, addresses the president's priority, top priority, which is securing the border and implementing and putting in place his immigration policies, rebuilding our military, and creating energy dominance for this country. So it's focused on those three things. It's focused on the border. It's focused on national security. It's focused on energy. The House, as you know, is working on a different budget resolution, and we certainly wish them all the success in moving it. We will work closely with them. More power to them. What they're trying to do is get the tax piece of this done and done quickly. And obviously, we all want to see the president's tax priorities addressed, which is making not only the tax 2017 taxes, extending them, but making them permanent. And that's certainly the priority for most, if not all, of the Republican senators here in our conference as well. So we will continue to work together in a way that ultimately gets us across the finish line and helps put the president's agenda in place. And as I said before, I think those priorities are very, very clear as outlined in our budget resolution. And coupled with what the House is doing, I think we're on a good track to achieve success. And if we achieve success, that's going to be a good thing, not only for the president, but for this country. Questions?
Leader, are you defying the president by going ahead with your own budget plan when he pretty strongly endorsed what the House is working on?
Well, I think he's made it clear for a long time that he would prefer one big, beautiful bill. And we're fine with that too. If the House can produce one big, beautiful bill, we're prepared.
I'm not sure omnibus bills are great. I'm against omnibus bills. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin D3. Why? D3 helps to absorb calcium, but it also helps as a gene expression cofactor. That means that when your cell needs to express certain genes, it needs D3 as a cofactor. In addition, D3 is needed to get cells to go into apoptosis, especially if they've been infected. I've been saying for a few years that certain infections will shut down the innate immune system and prevent cells from going into apoptosis. That's the reason why you need to take vitamin D3 during the cold season. In addition, D3 couples with K2, MK7 to help with your cardiovascular health and with your bone health. If you do some resistance training, take calcium as a supplement or drink milk, which is what I do for my calcium, and take D3 and K2, you're actually going to build bone density when you're doing that resistance training. You're sending growth signals to that stressed area where you're doing the weightlifting. And what will happen is that your body is going to take that calcium and start depositing it and creating new bone matrix. A lot of people don't realize that your bones, the bone matrix sheds and replenishes, and it goes through this 5 to 7 year cycle. But when you get older and you aren't as active, what happens is you're depleting your bone matrix. And over time, you're literally just urinating out your minerals that used to be the density of your bone. Now, you need to reverse that by taking D3, K2, do resistance training, and take a calcium supplement. Now, many women that go into menopause, they're postmenopausal, you're going to start losing a lot of bone density. That's why it's so important to take calcium, take D3, take K2, and do resistance training to reduce that osteoporosis. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the vitamin D3. Make sure you get the K2. I'll be talking about that later. All right, let's, I want to go to RT. A lot of people don't listen to RT anymore because YouTube shut them down. Because, you know, YouTube is full of freedom of speech. So their take on what's going on with the peace, the potential peace in Ukraine.
Instinct. Can Ukraine, I mean, it looks like that, you know, at least the current leadership or people in power in Ukraine, they want to move towards European Union membership. And that's up to the Ukrainian people. But I mean, after all this has happened, do you think Ukraine can trust Europe?
I don't think Ukraine cannot trust anybody right now at all in this situation. Ukraine saw what Europe is already. After 2014, the promises of the so-called free world European Union and trips to Vienna and having talked in Vienna by Poroshenko are now in a bloodshed. And Ukrainians understand that they need to just be where they are and be left alone. And this is what the Trump administration needs to understand, and the Western world. Ukraine has to be left alone. If Trump really wants peace, he needs to start acting on it and start getting all the U.S. intel groups out of Ukraine. There's more than 16 of them in Ukraine who are preparing Ukrainians for war, who are preparing the Ukrainian military for war, and the so-called Azov and Nazi battalion groups for war with Russia. And they were assisting them today. So they have to do that. They have to leave Ukraine at all. Let's leave Ukraine sovereign, have the diplomatic force stay in Ukraine, keep it official, and leave Ukraine alone where it could handle the situation with Russia after the peace deal has been made between the United States and Russia, because the war was started by the West, by letting Ukraine into this war. So Europe is a future for Ukraine. I think is not an option. Ukraine,
but I think, Andre, but I think Ukraine may have a future if USAID would get out of Ukraine and stop meddling. I mean, you know, you turn on BBC and Al Jazeera, and they have this, you know, human rights lawyer, okay, that speaks pretty good English. She's blonde, she's pretty. She's on the payroll of USAID. You're not getting the opinion from Ukrainians. You're getting it from the foreign policy blob in the West that actually is against the Trump administration as we speak, okay?
And I still want to know how Samantha Powell's ended up becoming a multimillionaire. She used to work for the State Department. She was running USAID, to my understanding. And then all of a sudden she's a multimillionaire. How does that work? Doge, get on it. Take a look at the spreadsheet.
Russia relations. Why were you agreeing with me? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we've had this incredible, unbelievable gap in our U.S.-Russia relations with Biden. And of course, Biden was not a competent leader of our country in terms of speaking to his fellow leaders. We know that. But there was also the very aggressive anti-Russian view throughout the Biden government, throughout the Democratic Party, and unfortunately, throughout the Republican Party. So you had bipartisan anti-Russianism, Russophobia, institutionalized for really over 4 years. So Trump, and of course, Trump was personally affected by this. His first impeachment related to that. And actually, Zelensky's people and Zelensky's government, this is why Zelensky should be very nervous. You know, Trump has some good features, but he also is someone who holds a a grudge. He remembers people who have betrayed him.
Yeah.
This loyal idea is very important to him. And it's part of his success. And it does not trust Zelensky at all. So on a personal level. So this is all of this has to be fixed. But yes, the Russia thing is most important. Also, Trump understands, with his Greenland gambit, he understands raw materials. He understands strategic location. He does this maybe from a real estate perspective, maybe as an American imperialist, if you want to call it that. But he understands that. And so Russia counts. You talk to Russia. You negotiate with Russia. You make sure there's an understanding with Russia. Ukraine, unfortunately, for Trump, for personal.
It's as simple as this. You can boil all that down to one simple statement. Russia, the United States, and China are superpowers. They need to talk. Ukraine is not a superpower. They're at the kid table.
Peace that doesn't threaten anyone, a peace that is profitable. In fact, we know peace is profitable. It really is. War, we talk about how much money you can make. Only a few people make money from war. Peace, everyone becomes wealthy in a peaceful environment.
And Karen, after all of the bloodshed and all of the violence, there is no hatred of Ukrainians in Russia. Russians don't hate Ukrainians, okay? USAID helped Ukrainians spread Russophobia around the world. But after everything that's been, the losses on both sides, there's still not animosity towards Ukraine.
I don't know if that's true. I think when there's a war, there's a natural human instinct to hate the enemy, no matter who it is. So I'm sure that Russians, there are many, maybe not all Russians, but many Russians hate Ukrainians and Ukrainians hate Russians. But that's typical with any war. My grandfather served in World War II. He was a CB in the Navy, all right? He saw a lot of action, all right? He absolutely, positively hated Japanese, totally hated them. Now, he hated them even after the war, but that's what happens in war. You hate the enemy. You have to hate the enemy. How do you go kill the enemy if you don't hate them?
With Russia, with India, to end this, talk about a new security architecture in Europe that includes Russia with indivisible security that benefits all, provides security to all. This is something that Russia's been advocating since the days of the Soviet Union in 1989.
Well, all of you, historically, Yalta is a betrayal. I'll take Yalta 2.0 in a New York minute if it brings peace. All right. That's all the time we have. Fascinating discussion. I want to thank my guests in Basel, Mount Jackson, and in Salt Lake City. And of course,
since he brought up a New York minute, let me push another product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Ashwagandha root helps to control cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. That means that by lowering cortisol, you're helping your immune system and you're bringing down inflammation. By bringing down blood glucose levels, you're controlling that inflammation of the higher glucose in your bloodstream. But you're also reducing hyperglycemia. Oh, that's amazing, Paul. By taking ashwagandha root regularly, you're actually mitigating some of the problems with diabetes. Wow. Isn't that so much better than having to take insulin? Isn't that so much better than, being right on that borderline between what is called borderline diabetic? Because your A1C levels are elevated? Get healthy. Take my advice. Take ashwagandha root, bring down that inflammation. And when you bring down that inflammation, not only are you controlling your blood glucose levels, but you're improving your immune system. And by bringing down systemic inflammation in your vascular system, guess what? You're reducing cardiovascular disease. You're reducing plaque formation. Wow. Amazing. Isn't that better than being on a statin? Isn't that better than being on metformin? Yeah. Take ashwagandha root with turmeric to get the max benefits to help with your immune system and to help with your cardiovascular health. Once again, I'm the most comprehensive on this stuff. It usually takes me like 3 hours or more to go through all of the different stacks that I have, but we're not going to do that tonight. NAD plus is something that I've added to my stack. Why, Dr. Paul Cottrell, did you add NAD plus to your stack? Great question. NAD plus boosts up your energy levels. You need lots of energy to be healthy. Old people don't have energy and they die in the bed or in a chair with low ATP. NAD plus helps you boost up your energy levels. In addition to boosting up your energy levels, it helps to repair your DNA damage. When you get older, like 40 or older, you are accumulating DNA damage. And you have repair mechanisms in your body to repair that, but it gets overloaded and it can't repair everything. And over time, you're accumulating more DNA damage and you get older, all right? And you age faster. So, but it's not just your cellular DNA that gets damaged, your mitochondrial DNA gets damaged. So to repair the mitochondrial DNA and your cellular DNA, it's really important to take NAD plus. And if you're 40 plus years of age, it behooves you to start protecting your neurons. You don't want to start having shaking or gait issues. You don't want balancing problems. You don't want neurological dysfunction, neurological degeneration. Do you? Do you want negative neuroplasticity? The answer is no. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the NAD plus, boost up your energy levels, repair your DNA damage, and protect your neurons. All right. Probably I'm going to go to CNBC here.
And Bitcoin is back above $96,000 after languishing below $94,000. We discussed the longer-term outlook for the broader crypto space with Eric Anziani, Crypto.com's president and CEO, in a first in CNBC interaction this hour.
I'm going to go to Fox Business. They interviewed Ted Cruz about Doge.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz of the great state of Texas. Back to the show, Senator Cruz. Welcome, sir. First off, what did you make of the Hannity interview last night with the president and Elon Musk? I'm sure you saw it.
Look, I think the president and Elon Musk are an incredibly potent team, and I'm really glad they're both good friends. I know them both exceedingly well, and I think it's very good for America that the two of them have become such close friends and such close partners. You look at Elon Musk, he's the richest man on the face of the planet. He could be doing anything he wanted, including running any of his multiple companies, and instead he's come to work for the American people for free.
You know the problem with Ted Cruz, besides that beard of his, trying to hide his big neck because he's overweight? And by the way, Ted Cruz should be taking Boomer Boost to lose some weight, all right? But we'll talk about that later. The problem with Ted Cruz is that he has a lot of money invested in crypto miners. In my understanding is he has positions also in companies like Coinbase, all right? But he is going to be a very wealthy person when crypto becomes more mainstream and there is some regulatory framework that's passed from Congress. So he has always been on the take. Yeah, he's talking nice about Trump's administration and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be through the Trump administration that there's going to be a regulatory framework for crypto. And what's interesting is that perhaps the Federal Reserve ends up buying certain types of assets to stabilize markets. Because guess what? Crypto is not a stable market, not at all. If someone says it is, you don't know what you're talking about because it's highly volatile. But the thing is this boy is going to make a lot of money. So here again, we have a senator doing everything legally, but has positioned himself to make a boatload of money. And you missed the boat. You can't do that. It's too late. And he gets insider information. Hell, he's voting for the fucking bill.
Bringing his prodigious talents to taking on sprawling government spending, out of control waste. And I got to say, every day what Doge is uncovering, it is breathtaking. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that he and President Trump are working so well together.
And it seems like, I mean, look, by Elon's own words, we talked about this a little bit in the first segment, but I want to get your take on it. I mean, he's kind of the hot.
Would he be saying the same things if there was a law that was being pushed that you have to eliminate your positions on anything that may be related to a bill that you are passing, and that you can't invest post or pre-bill passage? I bet he'd shit a brick. And believe me, that boy has a lot of shit in him.
Tech assistant, but he's also going to be the implementer or enforcer of President Trump's policies, particularly his executive orders throughout the government. And I think that is the most powerful jet fuel enforcer in the history of presidential politics.
Well, look, I think Elon Musk is very much a change agent. He is. You think about it, there are 8 billion people on planet Earth, and if you assume intelligence is distributed on a bell curve, Larry, you and I have both known some incredibly smart people. Someone is at the bleeding edge of that bell curve, and I think his name is Elon. I mean, it is, you spend time with him. Elon doesn't just think outside the box. He doesn't know there's a box. It's an incredible thing. Right. And I will say it is an incredible asset to President Trump to have someone like Elon willing to dive in night and day and pour his prodigious talents into fighting for President Trump's agenda. I'll also say there are an awful lot of Democrats and a lot of folks in the corporate media who are desperate to try to drive a wedge between President Trump and Elon Musk. They're doing everything they can to try to create friction. And as far as I can tell, those efforts have been an utter failure. The two are working hand in hand, and that's good for America.
Yeah, and I think that showed up beautifully in the Hannity interview last night. Senator Ted Cruz, President Trump on Truth Social today. One big beautiful bill. He likes what's happening in the House. He said we don't need the Senate bill. What's your take? You know, this has a familiar ring to it. I think you and I talked about this a few months ago, but I don't want to remind anybody of it. But the fact is, we don't need another Senate bill. We got a House bill. It's got everything in it. It's what the president wants. Can you just give him what he wants, sir?
Well, I'll tell you what, Larry, you and I and the president, we're all on the same page that we want to succeed in delivering on our promises, that failure is not an option. And that's true whether it is one bill or two bill. As I told you, there can continue to be real risks in the House of failure of a gigantic bill with a tiny margin for error.
Big bills scare me because there's pork in them. Small bills are good because it's easier to digest and know exactly what's in them for the ones that are voting and for the general public to understand what's going on. These omnibus bills, that's scary. That's scary stuff. And didn't we complain about that with the Biden administration? Didn't we complain about that with Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer? The one that doesn't know how to cook a hamburger? And he's Jewish. He's not supposed to put cheese on meat. What the hell's wrong with him? Oh, he's a liberal Jew.
And so I'll tell you that the Senate's perspective is that we need to have dual tracks. We need to have options to make sure we get this done. And so today at lunch, we had Vice President J.D. Vance join us at lunch. We had a robust discussion with the vice president and John Thune, who laid out that the Senate is going to continue to proceed with the budget resolution we have in front of us so that we ensure there is a path to deliver, number one, to secure the border, number two, to rebuild the military, number three, to unleash American energy, and number four, something you and I care deeply about, to extend the 2017 tax cuts and to make them bigger and bolder. We got to get all of that done, and that means we need every avenue available to get to accomplish.
Now, I can't guarantee that this big bill is going to be just what he said. Maybe there'll be provisions about regulatory framework or opening up the door with easing trading or something to do with crypto. I would not be shocked. And boy, would he be enthusiastic when he's being interviewed on Cudlow about that one.
And Senator Cruz, 2 or 3 bills puts the tax cuts on the back burner. And companies, large and small, and middle-income working folks who have made up the new Republican coalition will definitely feel that they're on the back burner, that you got elected, but you didn't keep this promise. This is the risk you're making. If you don't put the tax cuts in first, this is the risk. And by the by, it puts a freeze on all kinds of business investment spending. And I think the stock market would be enormously.
Now, Noga text something in the message box here, and he's saying American cheese is not real cheese. So, I want everyone to, chime in and tell me if you think American cheese is real cheese. All right. Because this is really important.
So Larry, there is no Republican in the Senate or the House who wants to see a $4 trillion tax increase kick in at the end of the year. That is not going to happen. But well, the process of negotiating the tax bill is going to take months. There are lots of trade-offs back and forth. There are trade-offs that are not just ideological, but they're trade-offs between big businesses and little businesses, between families, between blue states and red states, geographic. All of that takes time. And what you don't want to see and what I don't want to see is the House trying to do everything all at once in a giant enchilada and have it collapse in failure in August and we don't get anything done. That would be catastrophic. And so we cannot let that happen.
You'll never get more than one bite out of the apple in the House. Everybody knows that. I'll just say this one thing. I said this in the first segment, or I said it in my rip. Senator Crapo keeps saying to people that extending the tax cuts is a neutral act. It's a policy baseline. It's current policy baseline. And second of all, budget committees under reconciliation rules and law have the right to create their own baseline. You all, in other words, in short, Senator Cruz, you're making it harder, or you're making it sound harder than it needs to be.
Larry, I love you, and we found the only topic on earth we disagree on. But listen, I think Mike Crapo is absolutely right that we should use current policy as our baseline. And it's real simple because the Democrats are arguing, no. You got to say that maintaining the current tax law, maintaining the 2017 tax cuts cost $4.5 trillion. Now that is utter fiction, and it makes it much, much harder to get it accomplished. And so that's the path the Senate's going to take, is we're going to follow current policy, which is what the precedent has been in the past. And by the way, the Democrats always do this for spending, and they have the field tilted in favor of more spending and in favor of higher taxes. That's backwards.
That's what they want. But again, I'm saying to you, it should be a neutral baseline extending the tax cuts. Let me move on, Senator Cruz.
Well, then we're agreeing on that, Larry.
All right. Well, shoot. I'm glad to hear that. Now, Ukraine, Zelensky. All right. President Trump today really gave him a shot across the bow. Stop talking back. Stop undermining Trump's peace efforts with Putin. And eventually we'll include Ukraine and other people as well. Just stop. He called him essentially a dictator and said martial law. He couldn't win an election in Ukraine. What do you make of that? What do you personally think about that?
Well, listen, number one, it was clear when President Trump campaigned throughout last year that he was campaigning, among other things, on ending the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine was caused by Joe Biden's weakness, his weakness as commander-in-chief. It was caused by Joe Biden waiving the sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany. As you know, I authored those sanctions, and Putin stopped building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline literally the day President Trump signed my sanctions legislation into law. So Biden caused the war, but Trump campaigned saying he was going to end the war. And I've been very clear, we will see this war end, and I think it will end in the first half of this year. I think the president is trying to negotiate that resolution. My hope is it is a resolution where the war ends and it is a clear and indisputable loss for Putin and loss for Russia. That's the outcome I want to see. I think that's the outcome that's good for America. I will say this. I don't think President Zelensky is doing himself any favors by running to the European press and attacking President Trump. You and I both know President Trump very well, and that is a strategy that is almost designed in a lab to produce the opposite of the outcome he's trying to get. And so I think he probably needs to...
Exactly. Not only that, with a good peace agreement, we could export LNG to the west side of Europe, and Russia can help with their economy and export their energy to the eastern side of Europe. And, you know, and then the middle would be around Germany, you know, right? It would be a win-win. But integrating Russia with the Western economies is going to weaken BRICS. BRICS was designed to basically try to chip away at the hegemonic power of the petrodollar. So this agreement could be way bigger than just Ukraine. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 or the Max 35. Again, it's the first pillar of the 4-pillar core protocol that I've developed over time for improving your health. What does this do? It improves your immune system. How do you use it? Thanks for asking. Take a teaspoon a day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20-30 seconds, and then swallow. What it does is it improves your oral hygiene, but not just that, it's improving your mucosal barrier in your oral cavity and your oropharynx. When you do that, you're improving your innate immune system. You're also improving the health of the epithelial lining within your oral cavity and your oropharynx. When you're reducing inflammation and you're improving that barrier, you're reducing the chances of getting sick. You don't like that, right? Trust me. So if you want to boost up your immune system, a great way to do it is to take the Max 14 and the Max 35. This also does a lot of other stuff that I can't talk about, but please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Max 35 and the Max 14, boost up your immune system. It's part of this core to help with your health. The first pillar, Max 35, boost up your immune system. C60, bring down free radicals. Turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines, boost up that immune system. And taking Boomer Boost to supercharge your energy levels and increase your metabolism. You do that, you're going to get pretty healthy, and you're going to get pretty healthy pretty quickly. All right. For the ones that are watching the live stream on YouTube, I do have X Spaces if you'd like to join, listen in, ask questions. This is supposed to be an interactive show. If anyone wants to talk, just ask for the mic and I'll give it to you. Just be careful on what you say because of the censorship on YouTube. We don't talk about certain words or certain phrases, especially dealing with the 2020 crisis, because I don't want another strike on YouTube. I just got off of one of the strikes with one of the 4 channels that I have on YouTube today. So don't screw it up, please. All right. I want to go to France 24, and they're discussing, I think, Trump's policy with Ukraine. The title here is Rule by Decree, so it may be other policies for Trump too. Let me just, let's dive
are in
into
really bad shape. If he loses that and people push back, they tell their local representatives, you know, we don't want to go in that direction, he won't succeed. So it's not purely a legal issue. There are legal issues there. The courts can't rule on them. I think ultimately we have to keep sight of the fact that more importantly, it's a political issue.
You don't sound in a panic. You think that the courts will, in the end, have the final say.
I'm in a panic. Look, there are three separate issues. One is, has Trump changed democracy? Second, has he weakened it? And third, is there a risk that democracy is just going to be done away with, right? And I think the answer to the first is yes, democracy is changing, in part because of demographic issues. The Democratic coalition has been there for a long while, is splintering, and Trump is a revolutionary. He's changed how politics works. Is it being weakened? I think so. In part, though, it's because he's affecting policies that I don't like. And that's not quite the same thing as saying that democracy is weak. Where I'm really worried is his impact on the respect people have for the institutions of government, particularly the courts. The degree to which people respect the
this
courts.
guy is a lecturer at the School of Law at Columbia University and a former federal prosecutor in New York. Davis is his last name.
The respect we have for our institutions. And that is a very subtle but really noxious way to undermine democracy.
Dan Hazelwood, do you agree?
I agree in parts. There's a bunch of things. Frederick Davis wants to talk about the campaign side. I want to talk about the legal side, which is funny. We're both trying to walk in each other's shoes a little bit here. I think it's true that Trump is trying to change and transform stuff. A lot of this is what he told us he was going to try and achieve in the campaign. But people also need to understand this struggle over the powers of the president, of the judiciary, and of the legislature are as old as the American Constitution itself. We're going to go on. The courts are going to win their fights. They're going to issue their rulings. Trump is trying to change things that people thought were law, but in fact were rules that were delegated to the power of the president. As an old school conservative, I've argued for years and years that Congress should be more specific in the powers it grants the president and has it more tailored. I sort of reject the notion that this is just Trump attacking our institutions. I mean, we just had a president in Biden who announced that, oh, there's a new amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
Oh, wait a minute. What about the institutions attacking we the people? I mean, let's look at that as a possibility, which I think is highly probable, especially with the national security state. I mean, are you kidding me? What about you having the capturing and the compromising of our representatives in Congress, where they don't listen to we the people, the little ones. They listen to, you know, the well-heeled K Street lobbyists. But it's all Trump's fault. Yeah, it's all Trump's fault. But it can't be Raytheon. It couldn't possibly be Raytheon's fault or Halliburton. You know, when I got my MBA, all right, one of the biggest recruiters that were looking for MBAs at my school was Halliburton. True story.
Under Obama, who incorrectly criticized the Supreme Court to their face at a State of the Union. The Democrats were saying if the courts don't rule our way, we're going to pack the Supreme Court. They called for impeaching Republican justices. It is part of the democratic system that is unfortunate, but it is true that politicians get to talk, courts get to rule, and then the politicians get to complain. This is normal. It's not a crisis. It's just uncomfortable. And we are having a real hard debate that is uncomfortable about the direction and power to the president and the direction of our country on issues. And Trump is pretty much doing what he said. I mean, the IVF is something that he said he would do, just as he said he was going to actually go after the federal bureaucracy and try and cut it significantly. We're seeing him do that.
Further to Frederick Davis's point about this criticizing not just the judiciary, but criticizing judges by name and accusing them of being corrupt. Do you agree that undermines democracy?
I think that both sides have, for a generation or more, have engaged in criticisms of both the judiciary. The judiciary is on the playing field in the American political system. It is not some unique silent body, and both parties have gone after them repeatedly on many occasions. So I think it's a big mistake for people to say, oh, this is just Trump, because it's not just Trump. It's both sides. Would we all like a more dignified world? Yes, absolutely, include me in that. But that's not the way the system works. When a court rules against you, you get to complain. You adhere to it, and even famously, Donald Trump said, I think last week, I always follow the courts. He will comply with the court rulings because the whole system will comply with the court rulings when we get to the final stages. But people need to understand, and I think Frederick Davis probably does this infinitely better than I do, sometimes these processes are long, they're detailed, and we can talk about some of these executive orders and the court challenges going on. They're in some cases actually very complicated technical matters.
But you have the old adage, see you in court, but you have to recognize the authority of the courts. Dan Hazelwood, Yale Law School graduate J.D. Vance tweeted 10 days ago how if a judge tries to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. That shocked people on this side of the Atlantic.
Well, and Frederick Davis was just alluding to this point. Actually, there are certain areas where the executive does have power.
All right. So we got these intellectuals that went to, some of them went to Ivy League, some of them taught at Ivy League, blah, 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 blah. You want to break the internet? You want to see something break the internet? And the ones that are listening on X Spaces, do you want me to do something that will just break the internet? All right. Do you? Let's do it, right? Let's break the internet. I'm going to play. I said that I was going to do this, but there is this rabbi that is very interesting. He's an older guy. He has a Ph.D. in psychology, but he's also a rabbinical rabbi, ordained rabbinical rabbi, right? And he is Orthodox. He has a very interesting take on current events and how it kind of parlays into, the Bible and prophecy and all this. So he just released something where it's titled "The Messianic Contributions of Elon Musk." So we're going to break the internet here. All right, we're going to play this. But before we do, let me just quickly talk about two supplements, and then we'll start playing. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin K2. This helps with your cardiovascular health and your bone health. Stack it with D3 and do resistance training. Take some calcium supplements or drink milk. I drink milk for my calcium. I've done that, for, more than 50 years. And do that resistance training and build your bone density. Really important for guys, but also for females that are postmenopausal. You're going to lose a lot of bone density if you don't pay attention. For the females out there that are listening that are postmenopausal, please take the K2, the D3, do the resistance training, take some calcium, and build bone density, because you will, because of your hormonal changes, will lose a lot of minerals within your bone. So you got to be vigilant on this. Another great way to improve your cardiovascular health is to take nattokinase. Nattokinase helps to break up clots. It's because it's fibrinolytic, but it'll also help to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That means that you're going to improve your total cholesterol and improve your cardiovascular health. You can stack it with K2 and D3, and it works great to help reduce plaque formation. All right, with that said, let me dive right into this messianic contribution of Elon Musk. Now, this is an orthodox guy, all right, but you listen to him, there's a lot of wisdom. Now, remember, he is biased, you know, towards the Jewish faith compared to other faiths, but he has a very great insight on current events. And again, he has a PhD in psychology.
Get into with a 3.6 GPA.
90% of students with a 4.0 plus GPA.
Before I begin, what's very important is to take away the confusion.
No, he's not healthy. He's overweight, and he has problems with his. You know, it sounds like he has problems with his lungs. So just, you know, keep that in mind. He's not a healthy person.
Bewilderment of people and what is going on. Look, we all know something is happening that has never happened before. And when we take a look at, you know, what Trump is doing, we've never seen anything like that. The speed of change, the way the world is reacting to him, you know, the Democratic Party that seems to be burying themselves. We don't understand what's going on, you know, and of course the victory of Israel over the Arabs and so on. But what I want to tell you now, and I'm going to talk about it, obviously, Mashiach, and demonstrate how, is all of this is part of the Messianic process. But for you to understand that,
of course,
most
YouTube
people
goes to
my age
commercial.
are slowing down, but I'm more active than ever. Hi, my name is Dr. Frank Schellenberg. I'm 77 years old, and all.
But for you to understand that, you need to understand why and how. And there's certain things that I am going to talk about tonight. Actually, it can actually be called a revelation. It's stuff that you've never heard of before, you know, and I'm going to talk about it tonight and reveal these ideas. And that will explain, believe it or not, things which probably will shock you, right? Once you really begin to understand the depth of what the Rebbeinu Shalom is doing and so on, as you will see. Before I begin,
all right, now he's going to do some prayers for people that are sick.
Success.
So let me just go past that.
And Shlomo Leib, Ben Fega. And also, place to begin, of course, is to see the big picture first, the context in which everything fits. Once you have that big picture, then of course things fall into place and they are logically justified by that what's called big picture and so on. So if you recall, there are three major ideas that redemption is really all about. These are the three major stages of what is called the redemption process or the Messianic process. One, and they will occur sequentially. The first idea is that evil has to be eradicated. It has to be obliterated, annihilated. Basically, it has to be removed, obviously. As long as it exists and as long as it has power to do what it wants to do, there's no such thing as redemption. I'm not defining evil, obviously. I don't want to go that far afield. But we know what evil is, and it has to be eradicated. Then the second stage of redemption is that there has to be a change of being. Now, obviously, I'm jumping because we could say the second stage is where the exile ends and the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt and the Shekhinah returns. That's all true, and that's all part of the stage after evil is destroyed, and so on. But I'm jumping ahead to a major stage, and that is that being has to be changed. Okay? In other words, I mentioned this, I gave a whole share about this. Being changed means you go from being a physical body with what is called Zoyama to a physical body without Zoyama. That's like Adam Rishon before the sin. That is in the Messianic era, after Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. And then you become spiritual. You actually become a spiritual being, which we've talked about. And then after that, you become a divine being, which is the era of Olam Haba. But the main idea is that your being changes, and so on. That's a very important idea. There's a second major change of redemption, but that type of redemption is already beyond what we can envision, and so on. And the third major change, which is concomitant with a change of being, and it's probably the greatest of all changes, because really that's what it leads up to, is a change of consciousness, awareness. What do we really know? What is our reality perception, right? Consciousness. And obviously we go from a state of many beings or multiple beings, and we realize in the end that there is only God, right? Besides God, there is nothing else. And not only did we realize that in whatever form we will be thinking in the Olam Haba, but we actually experience God as a being that it's the only thing that really exists. And we actually experience that. And we don't even know how that happens or what it means. But that is the ultimate consciousness, and so on. Anyway, so this is the three major steps that takes place, and it defines the redemption process. Okay, now.
Oh no, we're embarrassed. We screwed up. Our warehouse is overloaded with survival food kits, but our mess is your gain. You win. Because right now.
Okay, now, going more into the individual steps, obviously I'm going to leave out the last two, is the concept of evil. Okay, and that is divided into substages. One, evil has to be removed, and I mean really removed. The actors, the players, the bad people, or evil in and of itself, even by good people, has to be removed. That's number one. Not only does it have to be removed, but it has to be replaced with good. You see, and good means to be concerned, which is interesting. Good means to be concerned with enhancing and improving being of oneself and of others. That's what the good basically really is. But in any case, evil has to be replaced with good. Then the third part of that is where the good itself has to reach a higher level. So once evil is gone, and then there's good, then the good itself has different levels, okay, of intensity and form. So it has to elevate, and you go from a low amount to a much higher amount. So I would say that's the third stage. And the last stage is something which is very interesting, which will happen, by the way, is that the concept of evil or the idea of evil will be removed from creation. That means you won't even be able to think of evil. It doesn't exist anymore as a concept, right? That negative idea, that negation of good won't exist. So you can't be evil because you don't even know what it is. You cannot imagine that type of behavior called evil. And that will only happen, obviously, after the Zoyama, after the Chesa Mason. Because when the Sultan dies, which he will die, or certainly he will cease his operations, then what that means is not that Sultan ceases, but the idea or the concept lingers on. No, the concept doesn't exist anymore. So you cannot even imagine doing it because you cannot conceive of it. And we don't even know what that means. But God, just like who allows evil? Well, God created the possibility of evil. You see, that itself is a nivra, is a creation. So what God do is he will remove it. He will yank it out of creation. And guess what? If he does, you cannot conceive of it. Right? It's not available to be thought about at all because it doesn't exist. That is the ultimate state of the removal of evil. So I'm just telling you the different substages of the removal of evil itself. And then obviously there will only be good, and in its highest form, which will be incredible righteousness. I really mean incredible righteousness and incredible holiness, right? And incredible divinity, which we can only begin to imagine and so on. In any case, this is redemption. It's not just world peace. That's the beginning of redemption. Redemption means to be freed from all kinds of negative concepts and ideas, and certainly human behavior. Okay, so we have a handle on Geula, redemption. Now, of course, to us, it means very simple, the end of exile, right, obviously, the introduction or the rebuilding of the temple, right?
For anyone struggling with dementia, do not drink cold water. You've probably heard that memory loss is all about aging, right? You might think that.
Right. The restoration of the divine presence, the Shekhinah. And of course, it means the restoration of the Jewish people to Torah greatness. That's certainly part of the redemption, you see. And once the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt and so on, then of course you have Mashiach. And as I mentioned last time, or whenever, we are now in the beginning of the Messianic age. And I talked about that. I think it was a previous year, last year, whatever, that Aschalta de Geula, the beginning of redemption, has started. And I mentioned November 5th, which is the election. And I will show you what that means shortly, what's really happening in that sense. Okay, so we now have a handle. I brought you up to speed in terms of what the Geula is. It's a generic idea, its specifics, and also the concept of evil and so on. Now, I want to tell you something which most people don't know. And so in a certain sense, it's a revelation. But I feel it will explain to you what is happening today in America, as you will see. Do you ever wonder, Moshe Aaron, why was there Aaron? Who was Moshe Rabbeinu really? And Moshe Rabbeinu obviously is the Mashiach, because his job, or what he was tasked to do, is Messianic. To take the Jews out of Egypt, which is to take them out of Golis, exile, to bring them to Israel, to give them the Torah, right? And introduce a whole different Kufa, period of time, you see. So that's Messianic. Who was he? He's Mashiach ben Yosef. That's really who he really was. And he would have been Mashiach if it wasn't for the sin of the golden calf. I've said that many times in the song, right? And therefore, once Jews sinned with the golden calf, he had to remove himself from that possibility. And ultimately, we have to continue the process, ultimately, to bring Mashiach ben Yosef. And then after Mashiach ben Yosef, of course, Mashiach ben David. But you ever wonder who's Aaron? But what's even more puzzling is not only, I mean, we know Aaron is his brother, it's obviously. But why was there a necessity for Aaron to join Moshe? Aaron wasn't just his brother. You know, some guy lives in New York and his brother lives in California. You know, they're brothers, but they obviously each other and so on. Aaron was a fundamental fabric, key to the redemption. In fact, it would be interesting to know Moshe Rabbeinu, whatever you want to call it, had a speech impediment. So when Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Rebbe Shalom, I can't speak, how am I going to convince Parai? You know, I'm not a speaker, and so on. And it does require a gift of eloquence. So Moshe said, don't worry, Aaron will do it. It would be interesting to know, well, what happens if Aaron wasn't around? What happens if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have a brother like Aaron? Well, okay, that's interesting to think about and so on. But what I'd rather think about is, who is he? Why was he part of the Messianic process? And he was. Aaron was a critical figure in the whole redemption process. Now, I'm not looking at Aaron as a Kohen Gadol. You know, that's what Aaron was gifted with, that enormous matana, to be the Oved, to be the one who was the chief service operator in the Beis HaMikdash. I'm looking at Aaron initially, you see, who was part of the redemption itself. So the question then, who is he? And I will tell you who he was, okay? From a spiritual standpoint, people do not realize that there are two Mashiach ben Yosefs. That's what people don't understand. Not that they don't understand, they don't realize that. Aaron was Mashiach ben Yosef. But wait a minute. So is Moshe. And the answer is, you're right. There are two Mashiach ben Yosefs. Right. That's really what it is. So we find, therefore...
Now, it's important that you understand what he's starting to set you up with. There are, according to Jewish tradition, there is a Messianic line that's coming from Yosef, and there's a Messianic line that comes from David. Now, most people understand the David line, but not the Yosef line. And he's going to weave in how Trump and Elon are the physical manifestation of this. Now watch.
Mashiach ben Yosef has a partner. Where do we see this? It's interesting. You know, two Mashiach ben Yosefs, yes, because they basically both have individual jobs. And that's what it takes to end the Golus. You see, the job of Moshe Rabbeinu is to bring down the ore, to bring down the Shekhinah to the earth, to bring down the Shekhinah.
Ore is light, so to bring down the light, the energy of God's light.
To the Jewish people. He was the giver of the law. Now we know that was his job. And therefore he received the Torah, because that's his job. His job is to interface with spirituality, with God, divinity, and to bring it down almost like a filter to mankind. You need that's a special type of work. You need a special type of neshama for that, the highest levels of prophecy. And that was his job, you see? But there's a second job, which is interesting. And job is what? Okay, the divine is now down. But how do you broadcast it? How do you transmit it to man? You see, we're not looking at one person. We're looking at the entire Jewish people, or we're looking at the entire mankind.
Don't pay anything to fix your roof. New York City homeowners can get a free roof while paying zero out of pocket. Saving.
Or we're looking at the entire mankind. Who transmits? You see, that's a special job. That needs a speaker. Right. So Moshe Rabbeinu's job didn't require him to have eloquency in speech. It did require him to have the highest level of prophecy. You see? But Aaron HaKohen's job was also Mashiach ben Yosef, was to bring these ideas to the Jewish people. And like the Gemara says, he's the main figure in the transmission of the oral law. Aaron HaKohen. The whole Torah was really, when you think about it, was transmitted not from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe would bring it to Aaron, and then Aaron would bring it to the elders. And there's all Gemara in the Eruvin, how it was transmitted. But Moshe taught it to Aaron, right? And then Aaron taught it to his sons, who then taught it to the 70 elders, whatever it is. But the one who transmitted, who made it known to Klal Yisrael, is Aaron HaKohen. Now, what is interesting is, wait a minute, that's very interesting. If Moshe was the main Mashiach ben Yosef, then Aaron would not have been as great as Moshe. But it's a very interesting posik, you see, in Vo'era, you see, where it says, and God spoke by Moshe Lemor. That's what Aaron. Whenever the Moshe speaks, it says, and God spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Fine. But in one place it says, and God spoke to Aaron and Moshe. Uh-oh. Change the order. So Rashi is bothered by that. Why did the Moshe change the order? It always says God spoke to Aaron, to Moshe, right? Because he was the receiver. And then Moshe would tell it to Aaron. That's the way it always went. But here was a pasuk that said, and God spoke to Aaron, right, and Moshe, which means he said it to Aaron, and Aaron said it to Moshe, right? Uh-oh, what does that mean? So Rashi says that. Rashi says, Shkulmen, they were equal. That's the mistake that people make. Aaron was not a subsidiary. He was not inferior in any way to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was as holy and as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. It's astounding. You know what that is? Shkulamim. They were equal. And the Torah shows you by saying, well, it could have been, and God spoke to Aaron, spoke to Moshe. That is the limud. That is the lesson. That's incredible when you think about that. So then what was the difference? The difference was the roles that they played, you see. But the reason why they were equal is because they were both Mashiach ben Yosef. Right. There are two Mashiach ben Yosefs, correct. They both have the job of what? Of bringing holiness, Torah, to the Jewish people. Except it requires two sub-roles, one to receive and the other to transmit. So therefore they have different talents and abilities. Most people never heard of this. What? There are two Mashiachs? But that's what it means. Shkulamim, they're equal, you see. So we now know something very, very interesting. That the job of Mashiach ben Yosef is had by two people, not one, you see. Now, sometimes we know who the one is, less often we know who the second one is. But there are always two people, individuals, who have that role. Okay, I hope I didn't shock too many people by saying this. In any case, and now we understand the dichotomy, or the fact that there are many dualities here, because you're really looking at two different roles, and so on. And I'm not going to analyze that, because that would be too difficult. But let me just point out some of the different roles. Okay. Yeah. Well, the first duality we find, which is interesting, Adam started off as one, and it was really supposed to be only one. Problem is he sinned, so therefore that created two roles. One is to get rid of evil, which he introduced, and the second task he had, right, was then to bring down Kedusha, holiness. So therefore you have the following duos, if you want to use that word, Cain and Hevel.
When is a thyroid condition not fixable? Weight gain despite diet or exercise, sleep problems, fatigue, hot flash.
Cain and Hevel. Interesting. Two, Cain and Hevel. Both of which were assigned that task. You see? So those are two, if you want to look at it. The original Mashiach ben Yosef's is Cain and Hevel, which of course went terribly awry. The second duality is Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu. Avraham Avinu was Chesed, and Yitzchak was Gvura. You see, again, there's a duality here, because both are in that concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. Then you have Yaakov and Esav, which I've dwelt on for a long time. Both of them were Mashiach ben Yosef. And the interesting thing about it, that even though Yaakov, his job was to learn Torah, which is to bring down, to receive the Torah, and Esav's job was to transmit it to the entire world. He was Yoshev Holam, a dweller of tents, which is a job like Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And Esav's job is to bring it to the world, to transmit it. You see, that's the second job. So Yaakov and Esav were partners, which I've spoken about. And of course, Esav became a Russia and so on. So what did the Russian do? He had to give the job of Esav, which basically is Mashiach ben Yosef. But just Yaakov was also Mashiach ben Yosef. So Yaakov took over the full job of Mashiach ben Yosef. And that was because Esav reneged on the whole responsibility. And of course, we know ultimately what happened was that Yaakov cannot do two jobs. So the one who did the second job, who took over Esav's jobs, and went away from Yaakov and went to Yosef. So Yosef became Mashiach ben Yosef. And of course, he transmitted the whole tradition to Egypt and to the Jewish people after they went down. So it's interesting how you see the dichotomies here and the dualities of these different figures and so on. You see, then of course you have the next duality or duos is Moshe V'Aaron, as I pointed out. But this has been going on a long time. These dualities of this task, who receives and who transmits, and so on. You know, then you have the next duality, Shaul and David, right, and so on. It's interesting. Shaul was Mashiach ben Yosef, and David was also Mashiach ben Yosef. But what's interesting about David is he's also Mashiach ben David, or he's the root soul of David. But David can be Yosef also, just like Yaakov became Esav, and so on. So you have that duality and so on, you know. What comes out of all this is something very fascinating. And I would like to say it. Whoever Mashiach ben Yosef is today, since we always know that there are two of them, because you have these two roles of fighting evil and introducing holiness and so on, right? It would seem that whoever's going to be Mashiach ben Yosef today, there will be two of them, right? Not one, but two. Because that seems to be the setup of Mashiach ben Yosef and so on, you know. This is what we see and so on, you know. Now, one thing I'd like to mention, which is very interesting, you know, is that there is a third Mashiach, which is really Mashiach ben Yosef, but it's sort of like part of the idea of Mashiach ben Yosef. Who was that? That was Shimshon. Shimshon, the great, the Novi Shimshon, that's what he was. Of course, we know him as, phenomenal strength and so on. But he was an incredible Baruch HaKodesh and so on. And he was called Mashiach ben Don because he comes from the Shevet Don. In fact, when Yaakov was giving out the brachas, right, he refers to Shimshon because he thought he was the Mashiach. You see, because he was Messianic. He had tremendous koyach to destroy evil. You see, the problem was, which is always a problem, is that he was ensnared by the Satan with a wife of the Plishtim and so on. And whatever, he obviously sinned, whatever, and he wasn't ready for that. So he failed. So that's when Yaakov Avinu realized, so first he gives a bracha about Dan, Yaakov Avinu, and Vayechi, that the Dan will be in many ways a redeemer. But then he realized, Ruach HaKodesh, that Shimshon didn't make it as Mashiach ben Dan, which is really Mashiach ben Yosef. And therefore he says, L'shioscha k'bis Hashem. We wait for your salvation. You see, but there is a sub-heading of Mashiach ben Yosef called Mashiach ben Dan. Well, part of the problem, when you think about that, is Mashiach ben Yosef, or Yosef HaTzadik, without getting into it, sinned for Tifa's wife. Okay, he sinned at a certain level. It wasn't completely clear of that incident and so on. So as a result of that, well, that's one of the reasons why Mashiach ben Yosef.
Every woman over the age of 50 needs this hair growth spray in their life. Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, when did my hair get so thin?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Mashiach ben Yosef has to die. Well, that was the original decree. But what took place is something very interesting. In order to remove that, the Russian chose two other people that were going to be Mashiach ben Yosef, Nadav and Avihu. In fact, Moshe Rabbeinu said something very interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron, I thought that the Russian would take us, for whatever reason and so on, to sanctify his name. Instead, he took Nadav and Avihu. So apparently, they filled in for the death of Mashiach ben Yosef and so on. In any case, this is what we see and so on, But in any case, what we now see is the concept that Mashiach ben Yosef is really two people having different roles in that setup and so on, Well, we could begin to think, or we can begin to ask ourselves, see, wait a minute, if that's the case, right, that Mashiach ben Yosef is really two people, and we see that the original is Moshe V'Aaron and so on. And if that's true by Moshe V'Aaron, as it says, Hini go'alti eschem achos koreshes, behold, I will redeem you, right? The last quarter will be like the first, right? We say that in Kiddush of Shabbos, of Musaf. Then what would make sense is what? If that is the case, that in the first Geula, Moshe V'Aaron too, then that's probably the last Geula will be like the first. Just like the first had two Mashiachim at the same time, which is interesting. So the last Geula will also have two people who are Mashiachs. In any case, now, so we now begin to realize something very interesting. I have mentioned many times the saga or the story of Trump and so on, right? The concept that Esav wanted to do tshuva. We know the story. I have mentioned many times. He wanted to do tshuva, but Yaakov Avinu didn't realize that, so he went back to his old ways. So because Asa wanted to do tshuva. The Baruch said, in the end of time, you will do tshuva. You will go back to your original role of Rav Yavritzoya, that the older will serve the younger, you see, which means that you will actually assist whoever the Mashiach ben Yosef is, you will assist that person, you see. So that is what Trump, and based on all of this, that Asa will return to assist Mashiach ben Yosef in bringing the redemption. I stated that that is Trump's role. That Trump, in many ways, is a Gilgal, as far as I'm concerned. Trump is a Gilgal of Asa himself, you see. And therefore, I predicted
he's talking about the negative and positive Esau, and that Trump is the positive side, where Esau is actually repenting, and that there is people don't become presidents of large countries and very powerful countries like ours or Russia or China without some divine presence, some divine hand in it. All right. That includes President Xi, that includes Putin. All right. But what he's setting up here is how positive Esau is aligning with Jacob to kill negative Esau. All right. That's what he's setting up here.
That he would win, not only that he would win, right, but that he would change, he would combat evil. He's the Tosh of Esav. He's a good part of Esav, doing tshuva, and he will combat the evil of Esav, the real evil of Esav, which of course is the Democratic Party and the whole former administrations and so on, and that he would combat them, and it all happened. Everything is basically coming through what I had predicted based on these ideas and so on, you know. So that is a very important concept, you see. By the way, that's who Trump is. Of course, he's not Jewish. He's not Mashiach ben Yosef.
Let me just pause right there and let me just push 3 products very quickly here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Ubiquinol. This is a very high bioavailable form of CoQ10. It will boost up your energy levels, help with the health of your mitochondria, and it's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals, and it's neuroprotective. So please take this. It's synergistic with NAD+ and resveratrol and C60. Now, resveratrol you should be taking every day. Again, this is an antioxidant, soaks up free radicals. It helps with mitochondrial health, and it helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. Once you get rid of those cells that are in senescence, tissues that can repopulate because of adult stem cells will repopulate, and your tissues will be younger because the telomere lengths will be longer. Please go to my store and get the resveratrol. And lastly, NAC helps to bring down anxiety, gets your body into parasympathetic mode. NAC also helps to soak up free radicals through higher levels, higher concentrations of glutathione. Glutathione is a very strong antioxidant. This is synergistic with C60, and this helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney.
His job is to assist Mashiach ben Yosef, you see, in order to bring the Geula. What's amazing is that that's exactly what he's doing and so on. By the way, what's interesting, we've never seen it before. Trump is the most powerful president we've ever seen. Everybody shakes at Trump. Everybody wants to see this man. I mean, even before he became president.
It's interesting that he says this, because that's exactly what the Prime Minister of Japan said when he met Trump. He was, he had a bit of fear in him when he was meeting Trump.
Everybody was going to Mar-a-Lago. It was incredible. That was the White House. They all abandoned Biden and they're all going to Trump and so on, see? Because, so the question is, what is this? We've never seen this type of homage applied to a president. The president is a very powerful figure, but this is way out of the ordinary. Everybody was running to see Trump. Not only that, nobody wants to oppose him. Everybody's afraid of him, you see. So the question then is
winter has arrived in Gaza. The nights are cold, and thousands of children have nothing to protect them from the harsh winter. But we're here to help. No child should fix.
The question then is what does this all mean? And what is very interesting, if you think about it, there's a chazal that say that a person should always run to see, right, a king of the goyim, and to see the honor, the dignity that is bestowed on a king. Why? Because this is nothing compared to the honor, dignity, and glory that will be bestowed on the Mashiach. And therefore, if you want to get an inkling, a glimpse into the terms of what will be, you should run to see royalty and the beauty, the incredible honor that is given to them, you know. You get a glimpse of it, not here in America, but in England, where you have the royalty and so on, you know, the tremendous honor that was bestowed to Elizabeth and so on, you know, and how the royalty is treated and so on. But that's a very weak form, because it's really it's a constitutional monarchy and so on, you know. But the honor that will be given to a king, if you want to see what it's going to be like by the Mashiach himself, you should run to see royalty among kings. You probably can get a real taste of that. You know, somebody like Louis XIV. I mean, he was like incredible. I mean, how he was king of France for 70 years or something like that. But the honor that was given to him, you know, I was once in Versailles. I went to go to France, you know. So, you know, you figure Versailles, it's nice, it's a palace. You have no idea of what that building is. If you are in France, check out Versailles, you know, which is right outside of Paris and so on and so forth. You can't believe the grounds are incredible and the palace is beyond belief, you know. And who was this guy really when you think about that? And so on, you know. But you realize that the treatment that he got was off the charts. So Chazal tells us if you want to have an inkling, a sample of that type of glory, check out a Goyish king, and from that you can begin to think about what the Mashiach, the Melech HaMashiach, will receive, and so on, you see. So therefore, if you now think about that, well, if Trump's job is Messianic, even though he's not Jewish, but he's a Messianic figure, he's a Mashiach ben Edom, right? An Edomite Messianic figure to assist Mashiach ben Yosef and so on and so forth. So he automatically, that glory, that incredible homage will be applied to him, will also be Messianic, right? And that's the understanding of what's happening, because his job is to assist Mashiach ben Yosef in terms of combating evil, because that's really what his job is and so on, to combat evil, to reveal it for what it is, you see. Therefore, that type of glory rubs off on him, right? That's why we're looking at something that's never happened like this. The president should have such an honor, such an incredible, you know, majesty and so on. Yes, because he's not just the president. He's a president acting in the manner of a messianic figure, right? Asa doing tshuva. That's where that comes from, you see. But anything. But you can see also that the characteristics of Trump is what assigns him this role. Look, the Russian made him rich. So he's not afraid of anybody. He has tremendous amount of money. And he has the confidence that goes with people who are very rich, you know. Not only that, he has a trait of being tremendously defiant. He's defiant. He does what he wants. He says what he wants. He's not afraid. He has that characteristic, which is an essential feature of somebody who's going to fight evil. You see.
Now there's a phrase with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was told by his father. His father and mother conceived the Baal Shem Tov when he was young. All right. Let me rephrase that. The Baal Shem Tov's father and mother were old when they conceived him. So he was young when his father died. His father told the Baal Shem Tov, not to fear anything but God. All right. And so there's this famous Hasidic story that the Baal Shem Tov was able to get mysterious, mystical knowledge from Satan in the form of a werewolf. And the werewolf was hunting him down, but he wasn't afraid of the werewolf. And the Baal Shem Tov was able for the werewolf to throw up a key of knowledge that is tied to Kabbalistic and Hasidic thought. All right. So he did not fear Satan. He only feared God based on the warning that his father told him. All right. So that's just a little Hasidic story. But the point that he's making here, a big point here is that most people think Messiah, the Messiah. He's not talking about the Messiah. What he's talking about is there's different soul roots that have very important jobs to do during this long duration towards the Messianic era. And that there is a Messiah of Edom, which he's saying that Trump is. There's a Messiah of Joseph, and there's a Messiah of the David line. All right. The Messiah is going to be off of the David line. But these other Messiah-like individuals are key people as we march through the milestones towards the Messianic age. That's what he's saying. All right.
Right. He has almost unlimited energy. You see, he has tremendous amount of energy. All of this is a divine gift because that's his role, is to fight evil, right? To expose it. And that's fundamentally what he's doing. He's also very successful. You know, even when he failed, that was basically to teach him a lesson.
There's another concept that I don't think people know about that's important to know here. And there's a debate on the number. Every generation has minimum of about 5 or 6 people that could be messiahs. There's also interpretation there is as many as 30 in every generation. Now, out of that 30 or 6 could be some of them that are Messiah of Adam, Messiah of Joseph, Messiah of the David line. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, when people think the Messiah, that's off of the David line for sure. But these other key people are really important. Now, every generation has the opportunity to go into the Messianic era. Every generation. The problem is that certain things have to happen to allow that. And almost literally every generation has failed. So, you know, there are people that have the potential, it's like a potential, that have the potential to be a messianic figure, either of Edom or of, you know, the Joseph line or of the David, you know, of the David line. They have the potential, but they may not actualize because of whatever. They may die early. They may, you know, not, you know, reach their full potential and turn their that potentiality into kinetic, and then they end up being that full messianic figure. But every generation has it. So that's a key concept here that he didn't bring up.
He's been a very successful, he's world known. He's among the most famous people of all time, if you really think about that, and so on, you know. And also miracles happened to him. The fact that he was saved twice from an assassin's bullet is incredible when you think about that, you know. Because he probably is a Gilgul Aveso. That's what he is basically, you see. And that's why I say that Aschalta the Gula started. He is the Esav that has the tshuva and combat evil.
And this is why Trump is aligning himself with Jacob, and he's going against the Palestinians, and he's focused on destroying Iran, because that's exactly what positive Esau has to do to repent and align and be given blessing with Jacob and Ishmael.
That is very, very interesting and so on. Like I say, his job, based on the divine plan, is to expose evil and so on, you see.
Now,
But
let
it's
me,
not only
you know,
to
there's
expose-
about another 15 minutes of this video. Now, what celebrity doc that's out there that has not only helped you through the crisis of 2020, helped you navigate through the financial markets, but also has walked you through the metaphysics and the Kabbalistic perspective of what's going on in the Middle East? Dr. Drew, do you think he did it? No. Wizard of Oz, did he do it? No. The only one is Dr. Paul Cottrell. That's it. Full stop. The only one. And having the accuracy. But, you know, celebrity docs keep on getting more and more and more followers. They put their stuff behind paywalls and make money more and more and more. But yet, you know, where's the real Slim Shady, right? You know, it's this channel. But the celebrity docs, you know, they'll just keep on getting the notoriety, still riding on the coattails of everybody else. And they're not even smart enough to be able to navigate through all these different disciplines. They're not polymath. They're not a polymath at all. Not even close. None of these celebrity docs are. These celebrity docs, they're bullshit. They're all bullshit. But, you know, lots of people watch them.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA.
90% of students with a 4.0 plus GPA.
Not only to expose evil, it's to expose evildoers. Who are the ones who do it? You see, and also how the depths of evil, which is being exposed now with this new program called Doge. So what the Russian has done is he has given him two interesting groups. The first group is his cabinet. He has had tremendous success in all his cabinet selections have been chosen. Because in order for him to be successful, he needs men of courage, including Tulsi Gabbard and so on, you know, people of tremendous skill, assertiveness, aggressiveness, that really are sincere about changing America. How many times as a cabinet figure, a nobody, right? He's weak, he's timid. But all the guys that he's picked, and you can go through them, all of these guys are top-notch guys. That requires tremendous amount of siyata dishmaya, divine assistance to have the right team. Because that's what his job is. So that's what the Brighteon has done. But there's something else that I want to mention, which I believe to be very true. And in a certain sense, shocking. If there are two Mashiach invasives, right? So if Trump is a messianic figure, right, and he is an assistant to the Mashiach invasive, he also has to have two people. Who was the second guy?
Now remember, when he's saying messianic for Trump, he's not saying the Messiah. He's saying a messianic figure of Edom, a key individual, leader that leads us down the road towards the messianic age. All right, that's a key point that a lot of people would misunderstand what he's saying.
I venture to say, it's going to be shocking, Elon Musk. You don't realize what Elon Musk is, you know? There's so many people that hate him. That itself is messianic, and so on. Elon Musk
Another thing, another concept that I have to tell people that aren't aware of, you know, how Orthodox people, Orthodox Jews think. People like him that are extremely knowledgeable, all right, and are holy, you know, and have prepared their soul over many decades, they are trained in a way to look at someone and actually see their soul root. I'm not that holy. I can't do that. You're not that holy. You can't do it. But there are people out there that can look at someone and actually see the history of their soul. All right. This is what he's talking about. He's of this caliber. Now, there are many people way beyond him, all right, this rabbi, that are much more fine-tuned in this ability. But that's what you're seeing. He's seeing something that you and I normally could not see because of this fine-tunedness of his spirituality. He's fine-tuned his antenna to be able to receive the information around us. All this information is around us. We're just not holy enough or fine-tuned enough to be able to pick up the information. But he is, all right? You got to be like really religious for a long time to get to this point.
Do you have any idea? He's the world's richest man, $450 billion. That is unheard of in the annals of history, right? $450 billion. He's certainly the richest man in the world. He's probably the richest man who ever lived. You don't get that kind of money unless it's been divinely ordained. Why would God give this guy this type of wealth? Not only that, when you look at Elon Musk, okay, you realize it's incredible, you know.
Are these 5 feminizing foods in your kitchen? Let's uncover the foods no man over 40 should ever eat if he wants to lose.
It's incredible.
I apologize for all the stupid advertisements that come through YouTube, but I am not going to pay YouTube to stop the ads. I refuse to make Sergey and Paige, more wealthy. Just to apologize to Don. I know that Don on X Spaces wanted the mic earlier, but I wanted to play through this video and we're running late. So I apologize. Our next show that I do and you're on X Spaces, I'll make sure I pass on the mic. I apologize.
Elon Musk his character is incredible. He's defiant, very bright, defiant, right? Not only that, he can transmit whatever he wants. He owns Twitter, right? He actually owns Twitter, you see? And not only that, not only does he have that characteristic, right? And he's wealthy and so on, but he's incredibly successful, you see? And he's willing to go through pain, and he's dedicated to do what? What he's doing is astounding. His Doge is destroying the Democratic Party. That's what it's doing. So not only is it destroying the Democratic Party, he now has the idea there are many Democrats, core Democrats, that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but all they make, I'll give you one example, Nancy Pelosi. She makes, I don't know, $200,000-300,000 a year from a salary. Yet she's worth $200 million. So the question is, excuse me, where do you get $200 million from a salary? You know, where does this come from? So obviously, it probably means that she has insider trading. I mean, I believe so. I don't know for sure, but he's now going to investigate her. Then you have Schumer. Then you have other guys who are worth fortunes in money, and they only make, what do they make, $200,000 as a salary? Biden, they say he's worth $30-40 million. And what's his salary? $400,000 a year? How is that possible? So he is now going to investigate the doers, the Democratic Party doers, the people who are the principals of the Democratic Party. And then his investigation of US aid. People cannot believe $40 billion on what? It's like beyond belief what these people have spent it on. I don't want to go through the list. You can't even believe the list, you know, what they spent millions of dollars on nonsense, billions of dollars on nonsense. How many people in America would have benefited from all that money? You know, especially the people that were hit in the hurricane region and so on, and the earthquakes, whatever, and so on. How many people could have used that money and they give it away to shtus, countries that do nothing? They gave how many millions of dollars of tourism in Egypt? Well, America doesn't deserve this. I don't want to go into all the incredible thing what US aid has done. But one thing, what Elon Musk has exposed is not only the doers themselves, the principals themselves, you know, but also in terms of what they've done is outlandish, outrageous, and really, in my opinion, it's a criminal enterprise. That's what people are waking up to. And the incredible thing is they're all trying to defend their actions. You know, no, what do you mean? You're not supposed to change. You can't look at the records and so on. I mean, people cannot believe. What are you doing? You're fighting a guy who wants to save taxpayers trillions of dollars when America anyway is in a very dangerous position because of the debt. Do you know that the debt, that the payment that America pays every year in interest is $1 trillion? Imagine paying interest, $1 trillion. Do you know what $1 trillion is? No, it's a word. But I'll tell you, if I had $100 bills and I had a stack of $1 million, that stack would be 40 inches. That's all. 40 inches, $100 bills to equal $1 million. How high would that stack be if instead of the $100, instead of, right, $1 million, it would be $1 trillion? And the answer is 674 miles. That's how high the stack would be of $100 bills if it was $1 trillion. Could you imagine that America owes $36 trillion? And every year it goes up by another $2 or $3 trillion. America cannot sustain that. They will go bankrupt. The world will no longer look at the dollar as the reserve currency and so on. America is in a very dangerous position economically. So this is what they're doing to the American dollar. It's just beyond belief. It looks clearly, in my opinion, no question about that, the Democratic Party is a criminal enterprise. It's always been that way. Certainly now this way and so on, see. And people realize that. So Musk is exposing the unbelievable evil. He's not exposing the evil of a particular person only. He's talking about the Democratic Party. He's exposing the evil of an entire group of people.
Oh no, we're embarrassed. We screwed up. Our warehouse is overloaded with survival food kits, but our mess is your gain. You win. Because right now,
of people. That's Messianic, right? But it's him and Trump. And what you notice about both of these guys is they work together. Even though both of them are very strong personalities, you see. And it would seem, therefore, that Elon Musk is the second Mashiach ben Yosef of Edom, right? Just like Trump is of Edom, Elon Musk is probably the second one. And together, they are working together, which is absolutely beyond belief, and how well it's working out and so on, you see. In any case, so these are very important ideas.
And he doesn't bring up the term fractal, all right? And he doesn't really explain it very well, but there's a little bit of a fractal going on here. You have the Palestinians demonizing the Israelis because the Israelis are moving towards a Messianic age. And guess what? The Palestinians are going to get the shit end of the stick. That's for sure. There's going to be a destruction of Iran. The theocratic regime of Iran will be destroyed. All right. But there's a fractal going on where there is a group of people demonizing another group. All right. And it was through October 7th that was the catalyst of the IDF to hunt down and destroy Hamas and Hezbollah and degrade Iran, which has already happened. That Scott Ritter said that would not happen. But guess what? It did happen. And now the Trump administration is aligning themselves to do the restructuring of Gaza without the Gazans. All right. Now, so you have this demonization that's taking place, not of just the Palestinians against Israel, the Jews in Israel, but you also have the demonization of the UN against Israel, a group against Israel. And believe me, there's a lot of corruption at the UN. And then you have this demonization that's taking place from the Democratic Party of Doge, because Doge is showing the corruption, just like October 7th really showed the cards of this battle between Esau and Jacob. So we're seeing fractals. The point I'm making is we're seeing fractals emerging and showing themselves in the news almost on a daily basis now. So as Doge how do I want to phrase it? Doge, I wouldn't be surprised Doge actually, if you look at it deeply, is probably a Kabbalistic gematria. You know, if you take the English letters of the alphabet and convert them into Hebrew, I wouldn't be surprised that some really strange word comes out of it. But I don't know. All right. But the point I'm making here is that Doge is doing the disentanglement of the other side, the evilness, the Satan that has attached itself into American society. They're literally unraveling it and showing the corruption. And when you do that, now you've disentangled. So we're trying to save money and stop spending, But that's a fractal of the entanglement of good and evil. All right. If you're following me here, maybe I'm not explaining it very well, but there is a fractal of good and evil, the entanglement of it, and the entanglement of our dollars that are supposed to be used for good, efficient purposes, and there is corruption and wasteful spending. They're related. And Doge is trying to disentangle this. All right. And then when you're disentangling, you're actually seeing that a lot of nefarious activities were taking place. A lot of evil, a lot of corruption, a lot of stealing. You look at the 10 Commandments, there's a lot of different, there's 10 rules that you're supposed to follow. Well, some of these people were breaking those commandments through nefarious activities of our tax-paying dollars. So Doge is like, in a way, is a spiritual entity in a way that is helping with the disentanglement. Now it happens to be with agencies and the spending of taxpayer money, but as they dive into the details, as they follow the money, they're seeing that groups and individuals benefited from the corruption. So there's these fractals that are taking place. All right. Okay.
What they are doing is not just destroying or opposing an individual member of the Democratic Party. They are ripping to shreds the credibility, the legitimacy of the whole party itself. That's what they're doing. And really, when you think about that, that's exactly what the task is of Mashiach ben Yosef, especially the assistant to Mashiach ben Yosef, which is really what Asa is, which is interesting, and so on, So this is is that the depths, the disgrace, and the treachery of the Democratic Party is being revealed totally by Trump and Elon Musk. It's really fascinating when you think about that. So we are watching a Schalta de Gula slowly play out. That Trump and his partner, Shutef, whatever, Elon Musk, are destroying the principles of the Democratic Party. Okay, and he's revealing the extent of chicanery, falsehood, right, and theft of this party, and the evil that they've done to the average American taxpayer. I mean, it's beyond belief. One would expect almost that the American people would rise up, right? You don't have any idea how many years this has been going on, and nobody's done anything and so on,
It's not years. It's not measured in years. It's measured in decades of corruption. Decades.
Fraud. I heard this. The amount of fraud and waste and abuse of Joe Biden is.
New York homeowners, if your roof is leaking, damaged, even if it's just old, you can save anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 with a free.
Of Joe Biden in his 4 years has been $1 trillion. Could you imagine that kind of a sum being wasted through fraud, through absolute stupidity and nonsense?
Think about that. I wish he was healthier, but he's very, very unhealthy. But here's the reality of the situation. That $1 trillion, can you imagine every single veteran and every single person that is, let's say, 65 and up that has retired would have better benefits a lot better benefits. All of their medical care could be taken care of. All of their medication taken care of. Job training for our vets. Homes for our vets that need them. Every single one of them. If we weren't wasting $1 trillion a year, even if it was just $500 billion a year, you'd still be able to take care of these people. Our senior citizens are literally deciding, should they take their medication or should they eat? It's not an and situation for them, it's an or. You got veterans out there that are homeless. You have veterans out there that are in need. And we got a government that's wasting $1 trillion a fucking year. That is ridiculous. And we got all this wealth that actually literally can improve all of our senior citizens and veterans' lives. Every single one of them. But the Democratic Party wants to demonize Doge. The Democratic Party wants you to believe that Elon Musk is evil. Now, don't you think that's what Satan would want? Because Satan is attached to theft and evilness. And they want you to think that the Satan and who Satan attaches to is good. And the other side's evil.
We can't. Really, they should be investigated and thrown in jail, all of them. Because how do you do that? You know, that people have trusted you, the Democratic Party. How do you stab people in the back? It's a mockery. It's a mockery to the average American citizen, right? Who's doing that? Trump and Musk. And I believe those are the two Mashiachim of Edom that is there to assist the Mashiach ben Yosef. Now, what he will do, Mashiach ben Yosef, of course, he will handle the Ruchnius, of course. You know, they will remove the evil, and he will hit, he and the Mashiach ben Yosef, whoever he is, and so on. They will handle the Ruchnius by ending the Golas, by having build the Beis Hamikdash, which will happen before Mashiach ben David. The more actually says that, and so on.
Okay, so there's three. So, all right, so this is something I'm learning here. So there's three. This is a series. This is a sequence that has to take place. So the Messiah of Edom, of Rome, has to do their thing to set in motion for the Messiah of Yosef. And evil gets killed off and the temple's rebuilt. And the Messiah that most people think about then is ushered in. So there's a series of things that there's two big events that have to happen here. The Messiah, or Messiahs, right, of Rome, let's call them leaders, very important leaders. Not necessarily messiahs, because in our modern understanding of it, we miss the point here. But very important leaders of Rome or Edom have to help show where evil is. And then the Messiah or the leaders of Yosef will kill off evil. So you have to find evil. You gotta hunt them down, and then you gotta kill them. All right. Then that allows for the rebuilding of the temple and the preparation of purifying the vessels and purifying the people and getting everybody ready for a big event that mankind has never seen before. And that's when you start seeing this Messiah off the David line. What most people in Christianity and in Judaism would say is the Messiah. All right. So this is a concept that most people don't get, that there is a series of events and there are very important leaders or quote messiahs of different soul roots. And with the Yosef line and the Edom line, they come in pairs. That's his key point. But when the big event happens off the David line, it's not pairs. It's a singularity. It's a single person.
No. And then you're going to have Mashiach ben David. You see, because the real task of Mashiach ben Yosef is the revelation of the Nun Shari Bina, the 50 gates of wisdom. That is the Messianic light. That's really what the task of Mashiach ben Yosef is. And like I said, you have one who brings it down, which is the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, and one who transmits it to bring it to people, which is the second Mashiach ben Yosef, and so on. And then Mashiach ben David, he will execute. He's the executor of all this. He's the king. He will run Judaism as an unbelievable nation of prophets. And that's really what's going to happen. So there you are. We are actually seeing, but we don't realize what we're looking at. We are looking at two basic figures, of which is shocking the American people, who is destroying not a member of the Democratic Party. They are destroying the Democratic Party itself, the core sheker. They are exposing the principles as thugs, as conniving scoundrels and so on. And they are exposing, what they've done, how they've made fools of the American citizen, the American taxpayer. I'm not even going into Biden, what he's done. I mean,
now take this one step further. Take this one step further for ones that have become pacifists or anti-Semitic. Do you think it really bodes well as these series of events start to take place? Now, how long does it take from Messiah of Edom to lead to messiahs of Yosef? I don't know. Maybe 50 years, maybe 25 years. But every generation has these potential messiahs that could come into fruition. But certain things have to happen. And every generation, there seems to have been, some sort of failure, some sort of an abortion of the process. All right. But the point here is that there are these series of things that are going to happen. Now, do you think that a pacifist that's anti-Semitic, all right, a lot of these ones that have YouTube channels, all right, and they're exploding their anti-Semitism and getting followers and gaining monetary gain from it, do you think it's going to bode well as the Messiah of Edom starts to execute their particular mission that was blessed by God? Do you think that pacifism is going to play well? Of course not. And that's why I was saying in previous videos, the pacifists are going to be attached to negative Esau. And even though right now they are demonizing the Democrats or demonizing the corruption, they're pacifists and demonizing what's going on in Israel. Now, Israel isn't all lily white, for sure. All wars have war crimes on both sides. It doesn't matter how lily, there was no such thing as lily white wars. All right. But the thing is that there is a overall trend towards a Messianic era, and demonizing that process probably will not bode well as we march towards it. All right. So be careful what you wish for. All right. Now, that can be on both sides. You don't want, you got to be careful what you wish for a Messianic age if you're not prepared for it. But also be careful if you're a pacifist, because what happens if the Messianic age, all these things that this rabbi is saying, comes to fruition? It's not going to bode well for these anti-Semites. It's not going to bode well for the ones that have attached themselves to negative Esau. They're literally going to die. That's what's going to happen. Because Esau, negative, has to die. That's been ordained, like for 1,000 years, thousands of years. So some anti-Semite that says they're religious, all right, usually, to some religion, that is not Judaism, all right, but and they think that they're going to bode well while they attach to negative Esau. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to bode well at all. But the thing is that God gives them a chance, gives them wealth, gives them opportunity to gain notoriety, he gives them a chance to repent, maybe donate the money that they made to good causes to help people. And that's part of their repentance. And so they go from negative Esau to positive Esau, and they'll align themselves with Jacob and Ishmael. That's one possibility. But the ones that don't, they're going to be killed off. They're going to be killed off because they've attached themselves with negative Esau. God's testing these people to see, as you get closer and closer to these events, and it gets to that zero time, all right, and they haven't aligned themselves to positive Esau, they're going to die. They're going to be part of the mass culling that happens during this process.
It's going to take years to undo the evil and the treachery of this person is beyond belief and so on, But the only way that can happen, it's never happened before in that way. People have been exposed, members, and so on. But this is the party itself is being destroyed. And that is Messianic. And that's really the job of Mashiach, of Mashiach ben Yosef. And the one who does it for Mashiach ben Yosef is the Messiah, Mashiach of Edom, the Edomite Messiah, both, which I'm saying, is both Donald Trump and Elon Musk and so on. And now we understand something, which I've said before, we can ask a question. Why is
Before he asks that question, it's really important. This is not some guy that's uneducated. He's a Ph.D. in psychology. But not only that, he's an ordained rabbi of, and he's Orthodox, all right? This guy is well knowledge on the subject matter. Not some person that picked up some Bible and maybe, studied the Bible for 10 years or went to some biblical, class and knows maybe some of the Old Testament and a lot of the New Testament. Not Bill Graham, not, some preacher, that has a mega church. This guy's got some serious wisdom. You can just by looking at him, you can tell. Now, obviously, I wish he was healthier, but unfortunately, a lot of these Orthodox Jews are very unhealthy. And that's why I get so upset, when they all have heart disease. But the thing is, because they have a lot to offer mankind. Unfortunately, he's declining quickly. But the thing here is that this guy's got some serious wisdom that most people don't have. You think some average preacher that you turn on the TV and you listen on Sunday morning has the same wisdom that this guy has? And he is on the lower end of the wisdom scale. And look at how much he has. There are many rabbis that are like way above this guy. But unfortunately, many of them don't know English. So you get like a translation from what they're saying. But of course, you're going to have people. Of course, you're going to have people out there that are the pacifists in the United States that think that we can't get involved in the Middle East, and the Jews are all evil, and blah 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 blah. And supposedly they have more wisdom than this guy. That's what they're telling you on their podcasts. I mean, I'm willing to admit that I don't have anywhere near the wisdom level that this rabbi has. No way close. Could I get there? Maybe in decades of training, if I wanted to. But you got people out there that are on podcasts that are making you think that they have more wisdom than someone like this. And like I said, he's got a lot of it, but he's on the low end of the spectrum. Can you imagine what it's like to actually listen to someone that has like 3 or 4 or 5 times as much wisdom and knowledge about this subject matter? Unfortunately, they're not very good with English. So there's a translation issue. But there are many, many very religious, holy, knowledgeable, wise people. And no, they're not. You're not going to find them on the street corner of Manhattan, having a blue neon light, saying psychic, and wearing like crystals around their neck. No, those aren't the types. Those are the bullshit ones. The real ones are this right here. But again, he's on the low end of the spectrum. And look at how much knowledge this guy has. But, there's lots of podcasters out there that think they know better. And they're trying to tell you on how they think it's going to be. Yet they don't have the decades or the multiple decades of training the soul to get to this level. But they know better. They know better. They're going to tell you to be a pacifist. But what they're really saying, and they don't even realize it, is to stay attached to negative Esau, which will lead to your death. But, they know better.
There's one war, there should be one day you commemorate, right? Since the last battle was fought on the 14th, so the 15th becomes Shushan Purim, right? So you have one day to celebrate. Why did Chazal make this distinction that there are 2 days to celebrate Purim? That's a very valid question.
For anyone struggling with dementia, do not drink cold water. So you've probably heard that memory loss is all about aging, right? You might think that.
That's a very valid question, because we're not talking about many wars. We're doing one war. Just there was fighting in different places, and in Shushan there was another day of fighting. And if you make 2 days, and the answer is that when you level evil, when you destroy evil, you have to be aware of something. And you'll see what I want to say. You have to be aware of the fact that, when you fight evil and you win, who or whom have you won against? So normally you win against a member of the evil group. Fine. Groups, movements have evil members. So you fight the members and so on. But what Chazal realized is not only did they fight Persia, the Persians that wanted to kill the Jews, which are, the outlier members of the people that want to kill the Jews, but they've killed also the Haman's family and the Amalekis of Shushan. And that is the headquarters of the evil of Haman. But they realized if the Russian has allowed us not only to kill the outlying evil people of Amalek, but also that people who hold from Amalek and what he wants to do. But he's also allowed us to kill the core evil, the headquarters itself. Then that's a greater form of ness. And therefore that requires a greater, a second day to commemorate that there are two levels of destruction of evil. One is the members of the evil group.
Now, this is why you listen to my channel, all right? This is a free thought. Remember what I was saying about fractals? Hamas and Hezbollah are the periphery. Iran is the core. Israel started knocking out and weakening and degrading Hamas and Hezbollah. And the United States and Israel are working together to degrade Iran, to get to the core. And we're talking about the evil of negative Esau. So what he's saying is extremely deep here. And it translates to exactly the battlefield that is happening today. But you'll listen to podcasters out there telling you that 2020 was snake venom and, to be a pacifist. But he's got the wisdom. Yeah, he's got the wisdom. Yeah, bullshit. He doesn't have wisdom. He's a bullshit artist.
So, fine. So let's say fighting an army and beating the soldiers. But what happens if you can invade the actual palace and kill the king himself? That's a different level of victory. That's a ness, a tremendous ness, because it requires a permission by the Revolution to do that. And that's why you never really hear of Amalek afterwards.
Now, don't you think that if the United States actually decapitated the Ayatollah, that would have some sort of big significance in the region and have some sort of divine blessing? But there's a lot of podcasters out there that want you to be a pacifist.
That's the last real, time you hear about Amaleki, who's in charge of being able to destroy the Jews and so on, But in any case, that's why they made 2 days. What we are witnessing is something highly unusual. And that's why it's Messianic.
You created an environment in which I could discover who I really am.
And that's why it's Messianic. We're not witnessing, where individual members of the Democratic Party are being vilified and proven to be nothing more than thugs and crooks and so on. See, we are witnessing the destruction of the party itself. That's the headquarters. We are witnessing the destruction of the core principles. These people that have stolen from the American taxpayer the actual principles, the main operators of the Democratic Party. We are witnessing that, you see, and we are therefore witnessing not only that, but they are being exposed as to what they did. If you want to understand what they did, how do you do that? I mean, where is your responsibility for the money that you've been collecting from the American public? Why do you do this to people? How do you take their money and give it to some country so they can have LGBTQ, whatever they have, right? Plays for what? If you look at the roster of things that they gave money to, your blood boils. Because most of them are stupid. They're nonsense. And they have nothing to do with American interests. Nothing. And you realize that America has been had. That's really what it is. That America has been made fools of by a bunch of thugs. It's a criminal enterprise. That's what they're destroying. And this is only the beginning. He's only president for 4 weeks. He's got another, 3 years, and 11 months to go. Trump and so on, That can only happen if it's Messianic, right? And therefore, we are witnessing that, the destruction of the Democratic Party, you see. And the one who's doing such an incredible job, of course, is Elon Musk. Because Trump said, it's your show, do whatever you want. And he has tremendous, and the beauty of it is that he has one of the most sophisticated social media, Twitter. I mean, he could do whatever and say whatever he wants. Nobody can shut him out, and so on, And Trump also had been granted a tremendous cabinet. That shows you God says to him, do it. Destroy this evil party that has destroyed the morals of America, the ethics of America. That's what they have done, And I now give you permission and wherewithal to destroy them. And that's what's happening, and so on and so forth. And that's why I say the Aschalta de Geula happened on November 5th. And we are watching that. You see, the headquarters of evil, the Democratic Party, thank God Joe Biden is no more. And he will get his reward, quotes, what he did to the United States. And not only that, what he did to morality, and how much pain and agony and abortions that has been allowed under his jurisdiction and so on. And in any case, this is what we're witnessing. So the main thing is, hey, take heart. This is the Messianic process. This isn't just Trump and Elon Musk. This is exactly what the script is. This is exactly what it is. To destroy evil, as I said, to remove evil, you see, right? And to replace it with good. And they're doing it. So that's what you have to focus on. You're watching the Messianic process, but initially it's by the assistance to the Mashiach ben Yosef. It is being done by the Mashiach ben Edom of Edom. And that's why it will succeed. And that is why the whole world, right, is enraptured because of Trump. And they can't believe what Musk is doing and so on. But they have been granted tremendous sight d'shmaya to their job. So look, we have to in certain ways rejoice that the process has started and it's working. It's being done against the Democratic Party, against evil. Look, Joe Biden is kicked out. He was in tremendous disgrace. And not only him, but that other nobody, Harris. Same thing with her. God has disgraced both of them, you see. And they have to live this down. They were booted out by the American people and so on. And that is a disgrace to both of them for the evil that they've done, certainly to Americans. So on. We just have to hope that the next phase of this operation is Israel and the Erev. Because what is happening in Israel is terrible. There's a war against the terror itself, okay, where there's a tremendous opposition to people learning Torah. And like I've said, the public school system in Israel is 1.5
So what he's
million.
talking about is what I mentioned in late 2023 and throughout 2024. There's this fight internally in Israel. There's kind of a civil war taking place between secularism and observing Torah principles. And because of that, Israel is getting a curse from God. God doesn't want the Jewish people to be fighting each other. even though it's a fight between people that want to observe the Torah and its precepts and ones that want to be secular. It's not by mistake that almost all, if not all, of the hostages that Hamas took were liberal Jews. All right, they were not, and they were taken during Simchas Torah, during a holiday. They shouldn't have been at the rave for Simchas Torah. If they were observing the principles of Torah, they would not have been hostages. So, but the point that he's making is there's an internal struggle that's taking place between secularism and orthodoxy. Now, this whole Messianic age is going to move towards orthodoxy. It has to, all right, because the people have to be purified to be able to reboot the machine. Secularism is going to be dead. But the point here is that God has stated that if the Jewish people fight each other, there's going to be a curse. And that's what's happening. And that's what he's just describing here. So there's this internal battle, there's this fight. Now it gets more complicated. You have the international community that's siding with the secularists in Israel. Why? Because Satan knows that the temple can't be rebooted if the Jewish people are fighting each other. If the Jewish people are not fighting each other and they're observing the Torah principles, then it speeds up the whole Messianic process. The root problem that we're having in Israel is secularism.
That's the whole future of Eretz Israel, okay? And they know nothing. Hardly anything about religion is taught in the public schools, which is an unbelievable travesty, you see, which all these people will be severely punished.
Now, again, here's another fractal. You have the Department of Education destroying the education process for the ones in primary school, where the ones in primary school can't read, write, or do arithmetic. They're way below on their assessment scores. All right. So if you weaken the society in the United States, then future generation isn't going to be as knowledgeable and free thinking and being able to problem solve. But the same problem is happening in Israel. You promote the secularism, promote wokeism, try to demonize the precepts of the Bible, and therefore what happens is a big section of the society doesn't know what the laws are, what the laws of how to do certain things, the laws of family purity, the laws of kashrut, the laws of the Sabbath, right? So the same thing that's happening as a fractal in our educational system, weakening our young generation of, and the youth, and they're weakening their knowledge base. It's happening in Israel too, by the weakening the actual observance of the precepts of the Torah. Now, if you're a betting man, which I am because I play the financial markets, I would bet that secularism is going to fail. All right. Now, when I say secularism, I'm talking about like this ultra liberal kind of agenda. That's what I mean. All right. There's going to be different levels of spirituality. There's going to be people that are spiritual. There are going to be people that are, more spiritual, and that, obviously this rabbi is much more spiritually enlightened than I am. That's goes beyond saying. All right. But the thing is that I would put myself in, the same bucket as the secularists in Israel, where they're demonizing Torah or demonizing the Bible. These secularists also are demonizing the New Testament. So the problem here is that there is infighting that's going on in Israel where there's a curse that causes the whole Messianic process to slow down. Big problem. But we're seeing something similar happening in our own school systems. We're weakening the full potential of our youth because the school systems are failing them. They're not coming out with the right skill sets for the society. The same thing is happening in Israel. You have individuals that are losing the skill sets that they will need to reboot the machine.
One day. So we have to hope that this will end and that the Supreme Court, which is really a tremendous rebellion against God and so on, will all be put aside, and the era will be not just destroyed, but put aside, or they will become defunct altogether, and that Torah will be restored to Klal Yisrael by Sheikh Ben Yosef, whoever that is, and whoever the two people are that will arise and change Klal Yisrael, and so on. Thank you.
Now, I'll tell you, that was some deep wisdom that he's saying. All right. And just let it sink in. Let it sink in for a few days, because that just listening to it that first time, it doesn't fully sink in what he's saying. But if you let it, if you gnaw on it a little bit, like a dog with a bone, you're going to get more insight on what he's saying. It's pretty deep stuff. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the products that I have, help support my work, and help support your health. Let me just plug the last two products before I go to bed because it's late. Please get the Boomer Boost. This helps to boost up your metabolism and increase your energy levels. It has 68 nutrients. Take a look at the label on my website to look carefully at the plethora of ingredients. It's a powder. You take a full scooper, you mix it with soft foods or filtered water or a shake or milk. Take it for breakfast or for lunch. Take it every day, and you're going to see within 72 hours, once you start taking this, your energy levels are really going to increase, and you're going to have, you're just going to feel like you have, additional vitality. So you're going to feel like you're going to want to work out, or you want to be more active now, and you're going to get better sleep. A lot of great benefits come out of this. It also helps to improve your heart health and your vascular health. It helps with your brain health. It also helps with your muscles and strength. And again, it boosts up your energy levels and metabolism. It's a great way to lose weight. And it's also a great way to reduce your chances of diabetes. And lastly, you can take heirloom barley or gladiator barley. The differences between the two, they're both very high density protein and high nutrient barley because it's heirloom. You can't buy the nutrients, this type of barley at Whole Foods. So, it behooves you to go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this barley. It's a high density protein. Take a half or a full scoop of this. And this will help to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase, help to detoxify your body. And the gladiator barley is designed to give you strength. So the protein in here is going to be the building blocks for you to build muscle. And by doing resistance training, you're going to have the nutrients from this. You're sending the signal to build muscle from doing the resistance training. The gladiator barley, you're going to get more muscle. If you couple this with Myotrol helps the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. So it stacks really well with Myotrol. But not just that, gladiator barley can be stacked with Boomer Boost. And this is a great combo for you to get healthy and to control your A1C levels. If you're borderline diabetic or you're diabetic, and it's through, lifestyle, this is a great way to get off and become non-diabetic, all right, over time. It can be done with proper diet and proper exercise. Again, this is your meal for breakfast or for lunch. You're going to lose weight and you're going to see the benefits of this literally in 72 hours. I'm not joking. 72 hours or earlier, and you're going to feel the benefits. And your body's going to be detoxifying every day. This is a very powerful stack. Now, I've created a box called Longevity Boost Box, where you get the boost, the Boomer Boost, and the Gladiator Barley or the Heirloom Barley. Now, with the Heirloom Barley, that does not focus on gaining the strength, but you do the detox, that you get the detoxification, you lower inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. It's a high density protein. It's the Heirloom Barley. If you're more focused on also getting strength gains, then take this combo here, Gladiator Barley with the Boomer Boost. If you're an athlete, younger or older, this is a great way to get stronger in your sport. So do your pre-workout or your post-workout fueling with the Boomer Boost and the Gladiator Barley. It's a great way. And Myotrol, stack these three together and boom, you're gaining muscle pretty quickly. So that's the transmission. Hopefully you learned something. There's a lot of wisdom with this guy. All right. I just wish he was healthier because I don't think he has many years left on this earth. But we're going through tumultuous times, and I have tried to the best of my ability, explain this process for a few years now. And I think you have a better insight on how I see the world. All right. And that's important. Don't fall in the trap of negative Esau. Don't fall in. That will be eliminated. You don't want to be eliminated. Now, you're either part of Ishmael, you're either part of Jacob, or you're hopefully part of Esau positive. But don't fall in the trap of Esau negative. That is a losing game. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. I do apologize for the ones on X Spaces that wanted to, ask questions and to, provide their insight. We were running out of time. I wanted to play the full video from the rabbi, and it's late now. I apologize. The next time we do X Spaces, I'll make sure I give you the mic. But thank you for listening. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.